Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was a hybrid beast in inuyasha. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by ANIMEPHILOSOPHER1 in link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Beginning. Watch out Kagome. Inuyasha cried. His wife turned her head and saw a giant root explode from the ground towards her. She was about to leap backwards when the Hirokatsu severed the left arm of the demon they were fighting. Sango's accuracy was perfect as the root stopped in its tracks, removed from the source directing it. Amiko nodded at her friend in thanks, aware not to shift her attention from the battle in front of her. Kagome, her husband Inuyasha, and the demon slayers Sango and Kahaku were in a fight with a notably powerful evil Hanyo that had come to their attention 2 weeks ago. Unlike Kagome's Inu Hanyo husband, this insect-human hybrid, the grandson of a yokai and insect yokai, chose the path of wrath and power over compassion and courage. He had decided that he was superior to humans and chose to slaughter, subjugate, torture, and rape them as he chose. His self-centered rampage had lasted 6 weeks before rumors reached Kahaku about him. The demon slayer heard of his atrocities and decided to look for help before facing him. And approached the village where Inuyasha and Kagome lived, along with Sango's husband Moroku and their children. While Moroku decided to go with Kahaku, Kagome and Inuyasha to face this misanthropic Hanyo, Sango was restless. It took her only 1 minute to persuade her husband to look after their 6 children while she went with their friends. While an angry Sango was very persuasive alone, the threat of withholding sex from the lecherous monk was overkill. Now here the 3 of them were, fighting the most challenging opponent they encountered in years. Inuyasha snarled at his enemy. Damn. That bastard's so fast and flexible. He's dodged my wind scar twice. Plus he's a hypocritical coward. Inuyasha gritted his canines as he recalled their earlier encounter where his wind scar was first evaded. The Kanju no O2, as the Hanyo called himself, had evaded the lethal attack by using the reflexes of an insect and flexibility of a yew tree. Following that the Kanju no O used human shields and an injured child to cover his escape. All the while gloating of how it was below him to fight any with human blood within them. You damn coward. Inuyasha cried. First you play at being a yokai when you're a Hanyo, then you use people to hide your fear, and now you tried to hurt my wife. I'm going to slaughter you. Kanju no O replied, insolent abomination. You have no place speaking to me in such manner. You have no right to even face me. Ayak. Kagome smirked. You will hurt the innocent people here no longer. In the moment Kanju no O was ranting at Inuyasha, Kagome had taken careful aim and shot a sacred arrow through the yokai pretender's heart. After living in the feudal era for 8 years, her accuracy and skill with a bow were much better than in her teenage years. The Kanju no O's form began to glow a bright purple. No, the Hanyo cried as his essence began to dissipate from the purified arrow. The fight was suddenly and surprisingly over. Kagome. Inuyasha shouted. Why did you take such a great fight away? I was having fun and looking forward to slashing that guy to pieces. Well, I'm sorry. He was so focused on your reminder that he was a Hanyo that it was too good to pass up. Sango, Kahaku and Karara descended to the ground. They had spent to fight in the air to prevent the demon from escaping into the sky as he had done before. I can't believe this, but I actually agree with you Inuyasha-san. 1 2 3. Huh. Sango-chan. Ni-chan. Sango looked at her companion's shocked expressions. H. She signed. I wish that fight had lasted a little longer. It's been 11 years since I got to do any demon hunting and now the excitement is over. Being a mother has its own excitement and struggles, but I often miss the thrill of a good fight. Sango was too disciplined a warrior to purposefully prolong a fight purely for the sake of pleasure. But there was a tiny part of her that wanted to extend this small vacation from parenthood. I'm surprised Sango. Kagome spoke up. I thought you'd be glad that it's over and you can get back to your children. Moroku's probably passing his bad habits onto them. He has Keed and Rin to keep him in check. There shouldn't be any problems. And I can honestly agree with him that facing demons is much more preferable than dirty diapers. Kahaku, Kagome and Inuyasha shuddered in sympathy. Kahaku remembered his brief stay after the first twins were born. While Inuyasha and Kagome had babysat all 6 children often enough that they agreed with Sango. Especially with Inuyasha's sensitive nose. Man. You and him are really living up to that promise to have as many children as possible, aren't you? Didn't he say 10 to 20 at least? Inuyasha remarked. Yes. But I'm also eager as well. I want to revive the demon slayers as a village or a clan. My family and village helped a lot of people who were plagued by demons before Naruto came along. I want to raise our children to help others like we are doing. But also to know that not all demons are evil. Like you, Totosi-sensei, Miyoga, Koga, and even Sesamara now. And that is going to take a lot of people to fulfill the job. Thank you. You have our thanks and praises. Our saviors. And more cries of joy were heard in the distance. A crowd of people came up to the four Yonki fighters. Meanwhile, in a different dimension, the people of an unusually large village, settled in a massive forest, went about their daily lives. On Hagakure, the hidden shinobi village of the Hai no Kuni, was a large and powerful village. Many people, civilian and shinobi, were happy, content, focused or excited. Well, most of them. One Uzumaki Naruto was walking along a river that ran through the middle of the village. He was lonely. A state that was inconvenient and temporary to some and moderate to others. But to a critical few like him, it was encompassing and constant. Class was pretty boring again. But at least Iruka-sensei's been a lot nicer since he saved me from those grass ninja last week. A family of four were walking towards him. He looked ahead. I'll just keep my head down. Then I won't have to see the looks on their faces. He heard the parents whisper to each other as he approached. Suddenly, they turned and walked down to a small bridge and stood there, facing the opposite direction as he walked by. Hi, one of the kids called out before the sound stopped quite suddenly. I told you not to talk to that boy. Just ignore him. Hey. Naruto cried out, turning towards the group. I'm right here. Dedabeo. I'm Naruto Uzumaki and you better not ignore me. Because I'm gonna be Hokage someday. He looked at them with a ferocious look on his face. Not one with evil or anger, but with determination. This was how his life was. Everyone either pretended he didn't exist or talked about how he was a demon. That he deserved to be alone and was a disgrace. The parents only looked at him before hurrying their children over the bridge. Deciding that they would take a longer route on their walk. Naruto looked after them, keeping that fierce look on his face. His eyes, however, had a wishful look as they stayed on the parents. Eventually his head hung low. What would that be like? Having parents. He followed them with his eyes until they turned around a corner. Naruto looked downcast. The one thing he envied and desired more than anything was for parents. For people to accept him unconditionally, to help him when he was hurt or lonely, and to encourage him on when he talked about his dreams. Iruka-sensei and Jiji are great. But they're always so busy, and I just think that hearing their encouragement from a parent would be so much bigger. The 9-year-old boy sighed as his thoughts encompassed him. I see a lot of kids at the academy. At the park. And around the village. When they get hurt their parents help them. When they talk about becoming ninja, their parents tell them to become great and that they believe in them. And that one time when Ino got a bad mark on a test. Her dad said he'd love her no matter what mark she got when he picked her up. Naruto rarely let these thoughts come into his mind. Yes, he was lonely, but all the constant neglect and hatred from the villagers lead him to bury these thoughts and feelings deep under his wish for them to acknowledge him. So deep that, to his ignorance, if he did gain the acceptance of the villagers, then he would still feel incomplete because he didn't have the time to work through the absence of a family one. Unlike his sensei Iruka Umnio. Both of these groups were separated across dimensions. Yet their lives were about to entwine with each other. Very, very soon. End. Chapter 2. A bewildering rescue. A bewildering rescue. Equals speaking. Equals thoughts. Kurama equals Biju speaking. So how much further is this well? Kagam asked. It's not much further, Maiko-san. We're very grateful that you could purify it. It's alright. Please, call me Kagam, she replied gently. After receiving the thanks from all the people in the clearing after their battle with the Konchu no O, the village headman approached them. He informed them of a cursed well 1 day's travel from his village, which never gave water, and everyone who entered it had never emerged again. Another bone eater's well. Thought Inuyasha. I'm not sure if this is really worth it, Kagam. We've solved the problem, and even that Hanyo didn't go near the well. This is a waste of time. Kagam answered her husband sweetly. Inuyasha, stop pouting over the fight ending so quickly. I'll just see if I can purify the entrance so no one will be lost anymore and nothing worse will come out of it in the future and hurt these people. Pouting? I am not pouting. I just concerned. Inuyasha shouted. Sango looked at the scene with a smile. Just like old times. People talked about changing over time, but Inuyasha, Kagam, Moroku and I only seem to have become more of our inner selves since our journeys to find the Shiken jewel shards. Kagam's as kind as ever and even more patient and strong, while Inuyasha is his brash self, but he shows the same compassion to everyone that only Shippo, Moroku, Kagam, Kurara, Miyoga, and I used to witness. She doesn't even have to say sit boy. Kagam spoke gently wham. Very often Sango finished her thought. Inuyasha picked himself up from the group. Ha. Those are a lot gentler than they used to be, Kagam. Would you like me to repeat it harder? She replied in slightly more serious tone. No. Then let's check out this well, then get back to the village so we can head home. A matter of minutes later the group reached the void well. Named since nothing emerged from it. Kagam was surprised. Her spiritual senses had also developed much more advanced from Kied's teachings. Just being close to the void well felt similar to the sensation of passing through the Bone Eater's well. Yet while the aura was foreboding, it was not pure or innately evil. Kagam, do you feel that? Inuyasha asked. Now Kagam was surprised. She was a spiritual sensor by nature. But for Inuyasha to feel the same thing meant the aura was much more potent than the Bone Eater's well was. And likely more powerful as well. What is it, Kagam-san? Kahaku asked. Do you feel that, Kahaku? That feeling is the same one Inuyasha and I had whenever we passed through the Bone Eater's well between this era and my home era. Kagam-chan, I don't feel anything. Sango spoke up. Now Inuyasha and Kagam were concerned. This aura was strong, almost extending out to them. But it seemed that only they felt it, since Kahaku had been curious to their reactions as well. Could this be because Inuyasha and I are the only ones to pass through the Bone Eater's well? I wonder if it means something. In a sudden flash of light and screech of steel, Kagam attention was diverted by the drawing to Seiga. Inuyasha, don't cut it. Something's up. Inuyasha held his sword in a guard stance. I know, Kagam. That aura from the well just got stronger and it feels like only we are being drawn to it. Everyone was on their guard now. Such focused power was usually a threat. Suddenly a strong wind started to flow past everyone and towards the center of the well. Everyone get back. Look out. Kagam and Inuyasha shouted. The wind increased and they noticed that leaves from the trees nearby were being pulled towards from the left, right and ahead of the group, the green leaves formed a light cyclone as they flowed towards the opening of the void well. Sango, Kahaku, get back. Kagam yelled as she felt herself being pulled into the well. Inuyasha felt the same but responded in kind. Wind scar. As the destructive force emerged from his blade and tore apart the ground before the void well. Yet rather than destroying it, the engulfing wind grew stronger. Kagam-chan. Mito-san. Hanyo-sama. Inuyasha-san roar. Kahaku, Sango, the headman and Kurara ran forward to try and grab their friends. Stay back. Inuyasha yelled. We don't want to drag the rest of you in. Kagam. Grab my hand. Kagam was shocked but understood in an instant. Whatever happened, she and her husband might be separated if they passed into the well. They wanted to stay together and never be forced apart again. No. Sango yelled. Kurara. Damn it, Sango, you need to get back to your family. Don't even try it. I know what it's like to lose your mother. Don't put your children through that. Inuyasha shouted. We'll be fine. Losing my father was hard too. Stay together with Moroku. Kagam cried. As she and Inuyasha were pulled forward, their hands clasped together and Inuyasha pulled her into his arms. The vortex's magnitude had increased steadily. They were pulled forward more and more in the span of seconds and entered the well. The spectators watched helplessly as their friends and family were pulled into the void well. Once they entered, the winds died in 2 seconds. Sango was shocked, trembling for a second before falling to her knees. Kahaku ran to his sister as she struggled to catch up with what happened so suddenly. 20 seconds earlier they had been walking easily towards the well, happy, content and reflective. Now Inuyasha and Kagam were sucked into the well and she was too shocked to respond. Hanyo-sama. Kagam-sama. Are you alright? 1 2 3 4. What the? Inuyasha's voice rang out. Sango looked up and ran to the void well with Kahaku and Kurara. The headman had run up to look inside the well. Inuyasha and Kagam were lying on a bed of earth inside the well, safe, unharmed and confused. They both looked up. What is going on? First we get sucked into this stupid well by a vortex and then nothing happens. Inuyasha shouted. Sango and Kahaku were relieved. Are you both alright? Do you see anything down there? She asked. Kagam started to look around and was surprised. She noticed hundreds of kanji along the wall. Her eyes fell on one symbol, shinobi. She whispered. Then Sango started shouting, Kagam-chan. Inuyasha-san. What happened? Sango, we. Kagam-san. Inuyasha-san. Where are you? All of their friends at the top of the well were crying for them. Unbeknownst to them, the moment Kagam had spoken shinobi, the void well had gone black, causing them to disappear from the sight of their friends. Then the kanji for shinobi began to glow. Inuyasha snarled and Kagam looked anxious at the bright lights. The next instant, both of them were flowing through a bright multicolored medium. Much like the one the pair passed through whenever they used a Bone Eater's well, it was like traveling through water, with shapeless blobs, some close and others seeming kilometers away. The two held close to each other and after what felt like an eternity, they were encompassed by a white light and standing on the ground in a clearing with the sounds of a battle nearby. Earth style. Pulsing earth wave jutsu. Inuyasha ears twitched at the cry, turning his head to the west and sniffed the air. Blood, gunpowder, burning wood and skin, unrooted earth. A battle. Inuyasha? Kagome asked, catching his attention. There's a fight going on close by. Can you hear it? Only faintly. It must be a long way away if only you can hear it. Maybe 300 meters, Kagome assessed. Probably further. I can smell it too, but only because we're downwind. We probably shouldn't get involved. It's not our fight and we don't know anything about where we are. Inuyasha was looking around the clearing while he spoke. While he eyed the well beside them with suspicion, the forest surrounding him and Kagome was much denser than the one the void well had been in. Also, the trees were much larger. Maybe not. Kagome replied. If we get close, then we could help whomever wins the fight and they could tell us more about where we have landed. Inuyasha did see some sense in his wife's pragmatism. Alright. We're downwind, so we can get closer to them without being detected if we move quietly. Jump on my back, Kagome. We'll go in from the trees and take a look from above. Moment later, the pair were soaring through the air as Inuyasha leaped from branch to branch. In moments they were close to the site. And saw 3 armed figures with red clothing standing in the trees. HHHH. This is going bad. I'm 2/3 out of chakra and there are still 5 of them. The gray-haired shinobi panted, grimly assessing the odds that he and his comrades were in. The shinobi was Hada Kakashi, one of, if not the most capable, experienced and deadly shinobi of Konoha. A high A-rank ninja, he had been assigned to investigate reports of Rouge Nin in the area 40 kilometers northwest of the village. Near the border between Tsuchi no Kuni and Hai no Kuni. Given the reports of a team of 4 shinobi with the caliber of their capabilities being around Chunin level, a team of 4 Jonin class shinobi were dispatched to eliminate them. Kakashi himself was the team leader for his tracking skills and ninjutsu prowess. Along with Might Guy, a taijutsu specialist comparable to a coordinated martial hurricane. A recently promoted Tabiketsu Jonin illusionist named Yuhi Kurenai. And a dynamic interrogation specialist called Mitarashi Anko. Between Anko's skill at acquiring information and Kakashi's tracking expertise, they had tracked the group without any unusual difficulties. However, while they were scouting the Rouge's camp, their information proved to be fatally incomplete. The group consisted of 10 Rouge Nin, 3 of whom were Jonin level. All former Iwa shinobi with a serious grudge against Konoha and Hai no Kuni. 7 were inside the camp when they uncovered it. However, 3 of the criminal ninjas had returned from the outside and spotted the Konoha Nin. While 2 were killed quickly, the other 7 had responded and saved the last one. Since then the hunters had cut them down by 2, but 4 Chunin level and 2 Jonin level enemies remained. Explosion style. Upheaval. One of enemy Jonin attacked, a former member of the Iwa Explosion Corps. Kakashi's Sharingan saw the jutsu streaking towards Kurenai, who had 3 enemies trapped in one of her genjutsus. While Anko would kill 2, Kurenai was moving on the 3rd. Her body shattered in a bloody geyser, too slow to evade while maintaining the illusions despite noticing the technique. Kakashi's Sharingan precognition foresaw everything as the Iwa Rouge had spoken X. Immediately his hands flew through 3 signs, emitted a notoriously high-pitched chirp, and met the target's chest as he dashed forward. Leaving an electric hole burn through the dead shinobi's heart. Kakashi had used his infamous high-speed assassination technique, the Chidori. Favoring its speed to save his comrade and lower chakra cost than the Rikiri. When you cannot defend, attack. With no reliable jutsus to block or deflect the explosion jutsu, killing the source was the only way to save Kurenai. With no shinobi to empower the long to medium range jutsu, it dissipated before it could reach her. Saving her life and cutting the enemy forces down to 3. However, the burst left Kakashi spent of any usable chakra. Kurenai was also close to dropping. I had taken 4 kunai into his back earlier in the battle when one of the enemy Jonin cleverly substituted himself with Guy to avoid poisoned kunai thrown by Anko. Anko herself had also taken some hard hits from a collaborative fire plus wind style jutsu while covering Guy and couldn't do any heavy lifting. The remaining Jonin and 2 Chunin had fallen back 10 meters to take stock of the battlefield. As the Konoha Kinwaichi stood in front of Guy and the kneeling Kakashi, their enemies smirked at their impending victory. Kakashi frowned at their enemies as he lowered his armored headband to cover his eye. He would need to conserve as much chakra as he could. I already used a soldier pill earlier and don't have any more. Guy's still recovering from the antidote Anko gave him after she was burnt and Kurenai is nearly as spent as I am. This mission is close to failing. I need to order the others to retreat. I'm never going to let me comrades die again. Plus I'm the only one here who can destroy my body so the enemy do not learn anything. Ahahahaha. You Konoha punks are seriously pathetic. Ever since the yellow flash died you've seriously slipped. Not even his student could handle a few dozen of us while he could fight hundreds. Don't talk like that. Kakashi has done us a favor. His Sharingan is going to buy our pardon back in Iwagakure from the Tsuchikage. We should be respectful to him. Kakashi's face didn't respond to the opposing jeers. No way. You bastards are going to make us rich from your bingo book bounties. And I need to repay you for the bad sauna treatment. Anko responded with a sadistic smirk. Kurenai, by contrast, was much more serious. You will not leave here alive and continue to kill more innocent people, she swore in a slow, serious tone as she gathered her remaining chakra for a final genjutsu. Ha! Like you could stop us in your pitiful state. I'm overjoyed to see you Konoha disgraces brought lower than those people we killed 2 weeks ago. Helpless and weak. Like a cockroach is waiting to be. Iron Reaver Soul Stealer. Two glowing claws suddenly cut down two of the Iwarujas from behind. Kakashi's eye widened as a blur of red, white and black landed in the clearing between his team and the single, remaining Jonin. After hearing the red-clothed woman gloating about killing innocent people, Inuyasha and Kagome had heard enough. Inuyasha had dashed forward, using his lethal claws to kill two of the enemy from behind, rather than waste time, surprise, and efficiency by drawing Tsuga while Kagome was on his back. After landing on the ground, Kagome stood behind him while Tsuga sprang from its sheath. The Iwa Jonin was more than shocked to see her remaining allies fall. But, as elite ninja, she reacted to the new development immediately. Prioritizing escape, she quickly performed a summoning jutsu to distract the new arrivals while she made a break for it. Kagome notched an arrow in her bow as Inuyasha unsheathed his sword. The next instant a cry rang through the clearing. Sumong Justu. The cloud of smoke exploded, rising 10 meters high as 6 spindly legs emerged from it. As the smoke cleared, a giant-sized whip scorpion stood in front of the Hanyo, Maiko and Shinobi. While such creatures lack the rapid stinger and venom of other scorpions, their tails arc around them, like a whip, releasing powerful toxins from glands within the tail. This particular summon had its tail glands filled with acid and could cover an arc of 50 meters within 5 seconds. While too harmful to use when allies were close by, the loss of the Iwaruja's remaining followers removed the risks in using the summon. Hey, move out of its range. I'll deal with the summons. Anko commanded as she swiped her hand over her bloody shoulder to summon a snake. Ha! Inuyasha smirked. Wind Scar. Anko had finished half of her hand signs when the shock of her life met her. The cutting wind of pure destruction materialized from the arc of a giant blade. The whip scorpion had shifted its tail, but the arc raced across the clearing, severed it into 3 and spread further beyond the target. The cut had been angled left to right, cutting the scorpion in half and severing the head of its tail from the appendage, leaving 3 pieces behind which quickly poofed out of existence. The slash raced further beyond, too fast for Jonin to do more than glance before her body was obliterated by the giant's slash. Kurenai was gawking at the sight. Within 6 seconds her and her team's situation had gone from hopeless to solace. Wah, what the heck? She watched, dumbstruck, as the figure in a red hakama casually hefted a giant blade to his shoulder. And his head towards the sky. I don't smell anyone else around here. How about you, Kagome? I'm not sensing anyone close by either, Inuyasha. Keep on guard though. I'll tend to these people and their injuries. Kurenai shifted her eyes to the second person, who was turning towards her team. Is anyone seriously injured? I can help if you are. What about that Iwa bitch? Anko called. She's dead. Glancing over her left shoulder, Kurenai saw Kakashi's headband raised over his eye. When they moved in, I uncovered my Sharingan in case they tried to attack us as well. The Jonin Kunoichi was that wind scar obliterated her, he explained. And? After the last Iwa nin was killed by the wind scar, Kagome lowered her bow and turned towards the wounded people behind her. Kurenai and Anko were confounded. Their minds struggling to comprehend how their situation had gone from guaranteed death into a kami-sent salvation. Guy was still unconscious from his poisoned wounds, while Kakashi was on the verge of joining him in oblivion. Inuyasha's eyes were roving over their surroundings. His ears twitching for any people nearby who might attack. What the hell? Why do you have dog ears? A certain scantily clad woman with purple hair cried out. Excuse me? Kagome interjected, calling her attention away from the Hanyu. That is not important right now. The state of yourself and the people beside you is. I may be able to heal your injuries if you allow me to examine them. They don't need to know about Inuyasha being a Hanyo yet. That'll just cause some problems. Kagome thought. A moment of silence followed before a gray-haired man abruptly collapsed. Kakashi. Kurenai cried, grabbing his arm and shoulder to help. One look told her the copy nin was completely exhausted. Then she looked towards Kagome. Alright. Please, help our comrades. Kagome nodded and approached the group. The other woman stayed silent. Her guards still raised towards their surroundings and the new arrivals as one of them introduced herself. My name is Higurashi Kagome. This is my husband, Inuyasha. What happened to these men? Also, how many injuries do the two of you have? My name is Yuhi Kurenai, the crimson-eyed woman answered. This is Mitarashi Anko. Our comrades are Hada Kakashi and Might Guy. Guy was struck by poisoned kunai earlier. But we had the antidote and he is recovering. Kakashi has chakra exhaustion from using so many jutsu, and Anko has a couple of burns. Otherwise we are none the worse for wear. Kurenai responded. Hey, stop try to act all tough. Inuyasha admonished her. You're pretty close to collapsing yourself. Don't try and hide it. Hagam paused for a moment. Chakra? What is that? I guess we really are in another world, but we shouldn't reveal that. Thankfully I was carrying my healing ointments and other herbs to the void well. I can treat their injuries, then find out more about where we are. While Kagam examined Kakashi and Guy, Anko and Kurenai began to take stock of the dead Nukenai and one in the area. They both consumed their last soldier pills to muster enough chakra to seal the Jonin's bodies into scrolls, while the Chunin were decapitated and their heads collects into a separate scroll. Inuyasha questioned why they were desecrating the dead. There was some resistance as they explained the need for proof of their deaths and the completion of their mission. The pair then began to burn the remaining bodies they could not take with them. Afterwards, the group moved away from the battlefield to a nearby cave. Anko needed to remove her cloths to let Kagam apply healing ointment to her back and legs. Kakashi and Guy were left at the entrance, with Inuyasha standing guard so the ladies would have some privacy. If that white-haired creep tries to peep on me, my snakes LL snap his balls off. Anko promised. Yeah, keep telling yourself that you're worth looking at. I'm married. And Kagam is a lot more beautiful than you are, purple-haired slut. Inuyasha replied. What did you call me? Anko shouted indignantly. Excuse me. Kagam called the woman's attention to herself. Do you want me to help you or not? She coolly asked the raging Anko. Then do not insult or threaten my husband again. Soon after, twilight was beginning to fall and nobody wanted to stay in a cave with no escape or out on the open ground. Anko led the group back to a nearby village, Tazahana town, for the night. Inuyasha had unceremoniously slung a certain sleeping blue beast and an ocular mismatched scarecrow over his shoulders, while Kagam helped a barely conscious Kurenai. The pair of Kunoichi offered to cover a room at the local inn for their add-ons and quickly selected a pair of suits, one for the ninja and a second for Inuyasha and Kagam. Kurenai and Anko decided to take shifts on watch within the hotel during the night. Due to Kakashi's and Guy's state, leaving them unaware and incapable toward their surroundings could be a dangerous mistake. Additionally, the inn was adjacent to the local hot springs, which the four conscious members found very appealing. Kagam was amazed at the modern appliances in the town. Her eyes were twinkling at the sight of a working bathtub in their suite. Street lamps, power lines, running water taps, all of them she had given up on seeing again after joining her beloved in the Japanese feudal era. Inuyasha was also surprised by them, though he had the maturity to avoid commenting on such installations to prevent awkward questions from their new companions. He was quite happy to see Kagam feeling some familiarity with their surroundings. After settling into the hotel, Kagam coyly suggested that her husband take the first watch over the men and give the lady some time to recover. Inuyasha was outvoted by the other females and left behind while they enjoyed the hot springs. This backfired when Kagam had to literally carry Anko and Kurenai out of the water when the pair passed out from fatigue. HHHH. Good thing I've gotten a lot stronger from bow practice and feudal lifestyle over the last 8 years. She acknowledged while carrying Kurenai to their room. After returning to find Anko, she insisted the Inuyasha should try the hot springs as well, and he only offered token resistance. Yet, after being left alone with the four Konoha ninja, a wave of bewilderment and loss overwhelmed Kagam. She began to truly assess the situation she and Inuyasha were in. Cut off from the world and home they shared and thrust into another dangerous world, she sunk to the floor and curled into a fetal position. What are we going to tell Kurenai-san and Anko-san when they wake up? Will they help us or simply drag us to a crazy house for apparent insanity? Inuyasha and I could go back to that other well. But would it work the other way or just leave us in another separate world with no way to return home? She buried her head in her lap, tried to think of a solution. I just wish Inuyasha was here to cuddle with me, she ached for her husband's touch. To reassure me. But I'm just being selfish. He'll be here soon. After a few more moments, she noticed that night had fallen over the village. Rising from the floor in Anko and Kurenai's room to look out the window, Kagam marveled at the town lights shining against the dark blanket of the night. The sight reminded her of her childhood at the Higurashi Shrine in modern Tokyo. She let out a comforting sigh at the familiar view and heard the door open. A pair of arms laced themselves across her hips. Feeling a little like back at your old home, Kagam? Inuyasha rested his chin on the crown of her head. More than a little, I admit, she replied. Before closing her eyes and nuzzling into his touch. Feeling the comfort and warmth of his strong arms washing over her. No matter what happens, As long as we are together, Inuyasha and I will find a way to move forward. Against any hurdle our lives place in the way. Demonic dimension. A bright orange sunset glowed over the village. The air was growing cooler as people hustled about to complete their final jobs for the day before the veil of dusk cleared away for a starry sky. A single villager set his baskets down near the door of his house as to fetch them easily in the morning. Whipping his brow from the day's fatigue, he looked off to the headman's house with a sorrowful face. After the party that set out to the void well returned missing 2 of their number, the joyous feelings in the village withered at such misfortune. Many had been eager to express their thanks to demon slayers and apologize to the Maiko and her Hanyu husband for some early hostility. The loss of the latter pair heightened this regret, some honestly believed they were gone forever. Yet their efforts to persuade Sango and Kahaku of this truth had failed. Sango sat near the fire with Kurara nestled in her lap. She was stroking the cat demon's fur, both drawing some comfort from being together after a long separation during Kurara's travels with Kahaku. After Kagam-chan and Inuyasha-san disappeared from our sight, we were so lost. I noticed that Kagam had spoken a word before they were gone, yet both of them were the only ones to pass through the Bone Eater's well and return. I hope my Oga-san and Todesai-sensei will be able to enlighten us when we reach Keed's village. I just wish. Sango's sigh echoed her frustration and discontent. Across the room, Kahaku noticed his sister's mood. Ni-chan. I'm worried for them as well. Our victory over the Hanyu had everyone elated, only to be snatched away by the void well. But jumping in after them would only have made the situation worse. Can you imagine Moroku-ni-san and your children if they learned you were gone? Kahaku, I don't need to hear of that anymore. Sango's sharp demeanor began to ease away. I'm so worried about them. I'm searching for something I could have done differently, but nothing is coming to my mind. I feel so much regret LTs like when I lost you to Naraku and Sessamaru. Kahaku rose to his feet and soon had a comforting arm wrapped over her shoulders. And you still found me again. Even when Kagam-san returned to her own time, she came back after 3 years. We will find them again, or they will find their own way back to us. The wells appear to be similar, so they might even emerge from the Bone Eater's well by a twist of chance. We just need to learn about these wells and what kind of mysterious power called only them into its depths. Totoja-sensei and Myoga-san should have some ideas or rumors about it. Or perhaps Sessamaru-sama will have heard something during his travels. Sango's head gently nodded at her brother's ideas. Yet her gaze remained fixated on the flames. Kahaku sighed and glanced out nearby the window towards the stars. Wherever they are. At least they remain together. I can barely stand to imagine how weak they would be if one had been taken from the other. Or if Ni-chan had disappeared while they stood by as helpless as we were. At the void well. So, this is the well that sucked you in, and someone carried you into our dimension. Kakashi spoke, standing 100 meters distant from the object of their curiosity. Inuyasha nodded, that's the one Kakashi-san. So, how's this plan of yours going to test it without risking any of us? The masked shinobi glanced at the man and his wife. He wasn't questioning their account at all, but was nonetheless perplexed by the apparent circumstances of their arrival. He and Guy did not awaken until the late afternoon following their night in Tazahana town. There had been a hassle as he and Guy noticed Inuyasha's abnormal ears and eyes, and they explained to the latter what had happened during the battle. Kagam and Inuyasha had decided to introduce and explain themselves to the 4 Konoha in together, rather than telling Anko and Kurenai and repeat the story for Kakashi and Guy later. After spending 4 hours of recounting their lives, identities and experiences to the shinobi, Anko was gobsmacked, Kurenai was scared, Guy was baffled, and Kakashi asked them to repeat themselves. After repeating everything 4 times over, Kakashi decided they were telling the truth as their stories had no inconsistencies. Then he decided to visit this well they had found and investigate. Guy was too crippled to run or fight, but he could manage walking seamlessly. So, with everyone taking turns to help the chakra-fatigued Kakashi move, they were standing before the newly christened void well. Will you stop with the ears? Guy and Anko had begun to reach out and stroked Inuyasha's ears. For the 40th time since their introduction to each other. I'm sorry, Inu-san. But it's just too strange to resist. Guy tried to apologize. Kagam growled in frustration. Can everyone once stop getting distracted and focus on solving how this well works? She asked through gritting teeth. Kakashi felt a petrifying shiver run through himself. Recalling a similar tone from a certain red hot-blooded habanero. This woman sounds a lot like Sensei's wife when she became angry. Why you're alright, Kagam-san, her hurriedly stuttered. Anko. My plan was to use shadow clones to examine the inside of the well. Then dispel once something strange happened. Hopefully, they will remain intact through any strange phenomena and transfer the experience into the original. He explained. Turning to the Tobiketsu Kunoichi, he grinned. Unfortunately, you and I are the only ones who can use them. And my chakra isn't too usable at the moment too. Anko gawked at him before grumbling out the lazy tardy dog. Shadow clones. What are those, Kakashi-san? Kagome inquired. Well, the masked man replied, watch Anko-san here for a moment. I'm certain she would love to show off this skill. Her mood placated by the spotlight, Anko positioned her hands in a cross symbol. Shadow clone jutsu. A duo of spare Ankos poofed into existence, leaving Inuyasha and Kagome surprised. Kakashi noticed their amazement and began to explain the nature and mechanics of this power. For this technique, a ninja just channels their chakra to create a complete physical copy of myself made out of chakra. And I'm the only one out of Kurenai-san and Gai-san who can do it. Anko gloated. Now one of you. Hop down into the well and see what you find. One clone Anko jumping into the well to investigate. Down below, the clone Anko saw a mass of various kanji across the span of the dry well and shouted up to the group what she saw. Glancing around, her eyes rested on one of them. Headbands. Repeating the word, the single kanji began to glow and a shout came from above. Anko. Your clone just disappeared from my sight. The well is flooded with darkness. Came Kurenai's voice. Glancing away from the glow, the clone saw the red-eyed illusionist for a fleeting moment before a vortex of air began to churn around it. Colors began to emerge and swirled around the clone. Black, gray, white and blood red. The dyes of a battlefield. Clone Anko was floating through the medium, enclosed by a cyclone of color, pushing her towards a single growing dot. Time seemed to stretch into hours, yet the clone remained intact, straining against the impulse to dispel too soon. After the span of hours, a flash of white forced the clone Anko to squeeze its eyes shut. Within a moment, it felt solid ground beneath its feet and the presence of someone close by. The clone's eyes peeped open to assess its surroundings. A well was located nearby, while standing a few meters away was a tall and stoic man. His skin was darker than any kind Anko had seen before, dressed in baggy pants and a plain white shirt with a cigarette in his mouth. A long sheathed katana held in his right hand and a pristine white headband tied over his forehead. With a number 2 painted on it. What the hell? Your hair is like some living afro. The man's pure black hair added at least 3 feet to his looming height, forming an enormous bulging afro. Clone Anko began to interrogate the stoic figure. Are you a samurai or something? He nodded, plainly. Can you tell me where I am or what this place is? Where's the number 1 guy around? Instantly. The Afro swordsman's eyes took a hard shape, bearing into Clone Anko like a violent storm. You want to find the number 1? To do that, you need the number 2. Quickly, Anko backstepped and drew a kunai. What's your problem, pal? If you want to fight. Shinobi Dimension. Back in the Shinobi Dimension, Kakashi was telling Kagome about the hidden villages and how shinobi functioned in their world. Anko and her clone were pacing, annoyed at the complacency around them. Kurenai had given up trying to placate the impulsive Kunoichi, while Inuyasha and Guy were antsy with their own impatience. After an hour had passed, Anko stopped in her tracks. My clone was just destroyed. In a pair of seconds, everyone was gathered around her. It saw a kanji for headband and got caught in a vortex just like Inuyasha and Kagome described. They're definitely telling the truth. My clone found itself on a barren track beside another well, facing the sky. Moving her hands together, Anko hinged into the figure her clone had seen. In a strong, brooding voice, the figure continued, this crazy Afro samurai got mad when I said I wanted to see the number 1 guy and started a fight out of nowhere. He even cut my snakes apart and shrugged off my fire jutsu. His katana cut me in half and the memories came back to me. I've got to get back at the bastard. The second clone Anko shouted, dashing for the well. Guy was faster, though, and he soon had Anko in a vice grip. Anko-san, please cool off your youthful flames at being affronted. I understand this Afro man's actions insulted you, but Kagome-san and Inuyasha-san are a more pressing matter. It took a further 20 minutes and the promise of Dango to placate the eccentric Kunoichi. After Kagome confirmed that it was not the grassy clearing she and Inuyasha had been pulled from, the other Anko descended into the well. Another hour passed before Anko let out a terrified shriek and was trembling in fear. My clone chose a kanji for hell spawn. It found itself in a forest at the full moon and met some guy in a red hat and suit. He practically radiated death and tried to talk tough to me. After a bit he invited me to join him rescuing someone. I went along with him and met some kind of priest that was trying to rape a really young woman. The red guy called himself Alucard and Anko was on going into shock, her skin whiter than bleach. Recognizing her fear and unfamiliar with her disposition, Kagome stepped forward and wrapped the girl in a comforting hug. Anko began to cling to Kagome, desperate to feel some comfort and safety. He was more terrifying than Orochimaru was, she murmured. Inuyasha frowned in confusion, but Guy, Kakashi and Kurenai were petrified by Anko's statement. They all knew the atrocities the Rouge Sannin had committed, while one had confronted him in person. For her to label someone worse than him and show such pure undiluted fear of them was very distressful. Kakashi, the most familiar with personal trauma, spoke up to the group. Kagome-san, Inuyasha-san. Does that name, Alucard, mean anything to you? Both of them shook their heads and questioned Anko about what else she had seen. While the forest and the clearing matched the Hanyu couple's description, Kagome's hope fell as she realized Anko was describing people using guns on each other. No, she spoke up. I do recognize the weapons Anko-san is describing, guns. But the ones you are describing are not from the feudal era that Inuyasha and I live in. That was not our home. Kakashi frowned, running the facts through his head. It appears that this well functions as a space-time connection to different worlds, depending on which kanji someone speaks aloud within it. His eyes traveling over to the well. If they call out the right kanji, then Inuyasha-san and Kagome-san could travel back to their home dimension and theoretically use one called Shinobi to travel here. Then that's our way back, Inuyasha declared. If the snake wench keeps. What was that? Anko angrily cried. Using those shadow copies of hers, then we can find the right dimension for our home and head back there right now. He finished. I'm afraid it is not as plausible as that, Inuyasha-san. Kakashi answered. Anko. How many different kanji did you see down there? No way. I'm not helping the dog man at all until he apologizes for calling me a wench. She declared. Come on, just say it. The sooner Kagome and I find our way home, the sooner we'll be out of your hair. What's there to complain about, snake wench? A tick formed on Anko's forehead as her patience ran dry. That's it. Shadow snake strike. Her hand flew up and dozens of snakes shot out from her sleeve. Inuyasha jumped back, drawing the Tsuga from his hip and deflecting the serpents with the same gesture. In a flash the blade morphed into a giant fang and was leveled into Anko's face. Both figures were tensed for a fight. Sit boy. Wawam. Inuyasha face planted the ground. His prostrated form sunk into imprint of his body, 2 feet deep. That is enough. Now, apologize to Anko-san so we can find out how we can get home. The eyes of 3 shinobi turned towards Kagome with a mix of confusion and fear in each of them. While Anko was smirking in satisfaction and admiration of Kagome. I've got to get her to teach me that move. After a moment, Guy cleared his throat and continued to speak. Anko-san. How many kanji did your clones notice down there? Hundreds of them. Maybe 1,000 at least, she replied, her arms folded over her chest and a comfortable smirk. I see. Kakashi spoke up. While Inuyasha's idea could work, Anko and I do not have the chakra to create anywhere near that many shadow clones. Any attempt would very likely kill us both due to how much chakra it would cost. Plus, we need to return to Konoha now that our mission is complete. Meanwhile, Inuyasha was crawling out of the imprint left by his wife's it command. Grrrr. So, you're going to just leave Kagome and I stranded here? After we saved your lives from those other ninjas? His frustration clear towards the masked ninja. Kagome began to speak at her husband, but Kakashi spoke before she could. Facing the Hanyu, his posture was relaxed and easy, with a smile clear in his single eye. Not at all, Inuyasha-san. After you saved the lives of my team, helping you both is the least we can do. Also, Guy and I are still far from top shape to travel back to the village, so some extra company in case we run into another ambush on the way would be deeply appreciated. If you and Kagome-san come to our village, then Hokage-sama should be able to help you both by forming a squad of additional ninja to return here and find the correct symbol for your own home. Inuyasha was surprised by the man's offer. Such an open invitation to go anywhere was still an unusual sensation to him. Well, Kagome was curious. Hokage-sama. Is he the headman of your village or another shinobi? Kurenai and Anko gawked. Well, Kakashi chuckled at the realization that his team had not explained shinobi to the pair very well. Ah. We have not told you already, have we? How unyouthful. A certain someone shouted. Well, please leave it to me to rectify this oversight with my youthful charm. Guy promised, with a blinding smile, wink on his face, and his thumb pointed to the sky. His trademark nice guy pose. Your assumption would be correct, Kagome-san. If you were to add a mountain of other responsibilities on top. The Hokage is the leader of Konoha, with the full authority over all shinobi associated with our village. Our current leader, the Sandaime Hokage, was chosen by the Nidaime Hokage and leading shinobi and members of the nobility of Hai no Kuni. Sandaime-sama is responsible for the security and prosperity of the village of Konoha and assigns missions for different shinobi, such as us, to complete. After what you both have done for the 4 of us, I'm positive he will be youthful and eager to help you. Well, the nature of this well would certainly worry him in case some of the demons and monsters from your dimension, or a separate one entirely, would find their own void wells and come through this one. Inuyasha and Kagome were surprised by the man's description, while Kakashi winced at his exuberant claims, despite how accurate they were. The Hanyu couple glancing at each other. Hagakure. Within the village hidden in the leaves, a single boy sat on his bed. Plagued by lonesomeness and longing. Naruto glanced out his window at the bright full moon accompanied by distant clouds. Even the man in the moon has something with him. The clouds keep him company, but I have nobody. His head sinking into his lap. In a rare moment, he let the waves of despair and isolation wash over him. The adorable little boy, in simple PJs and a buck-toothed nightcap curled up on the bed. Hours earlier, he had been walking along the river, heading for diner from his favorite ramen stand. Then, passing the park, he stopped at the park watching gaggles of children playing together or enjoying time with their siblings and parents. He tried to look away when the sound of crying filled his ears. Looking back, a single child had fallen back from the swings. Rubbing the back of his head, the boy's cry was simple and heart-wrenching, desperate for some way for the pain to stop. In a moment, a woman was kneeling beside the child, wrapping him in her gentle arms. Naruto watched as the boy clung to her as she kissed the top of his head and carried him over to the bench. It was easy to see the woman was his mother and to be reminded that his was gone. Naruto couldn't stop the dark and sad feelings growing in his heart. Watching a boy with a mother, seeing how she held and loved him, the emotional hole in his heart was pulling him into its depths. Try as his might, Naruto couldn't stop the ache from growing at what he had seen and never had before. Squeezing his eyes at the pain, hurting deep in his soul, tears began to form in his eyes. He had run through the village, trying to move away from the awful feelings that cased him. He lost his appetite soon after, and nothing could clear the haze of loneliness and depression that usually hid deep under his boisterous antics. After changing into sleepwear and crawling into bed, he soon fell asleep. Yet no solace came even there. Within his dreams, roars of chaos and confusion swirled around him. A powerful threatened force was close, one so overwhelming it pierced his entire body and soul with fear and terror. He was moving, some force carrying him across a wide expanse until it settled in a single place. Flickering light surrounded by a haze of black and red covered him. He was crying out at how confusing it was and the desire for it to stop. Then. Naruto, you're going to experience a lot of pain and suffering. Remember who you are. Find a goal, a dream, and don't stop trying until it comes true. There's so much more that I want to say to teach you. I want to stay with you. I love you. The woman's words came clear in his mind. The final three jerked him awake. He found his eyes open, those words echoing in his mind. Someone to love me. The boy, he craved to hear those words so deeply. Yet they were never spoken by anyone. Now he was curled up on his bed, trying to remember who had said it to him. Where did those words come from? Daiji-san. They must have come from him. He talked about finding a goal and following it is what a true ninja does. The love part must have just been a dream. But he whispered aloud to the darkness around him. But wish someone would say it to me. From a mom. I really wish I had a mom. And. Wow. Kagome cried in joyful amazement. It had taken the party of 6 people a week to travel to their destination, and now she gazed over the sprawling town beneath the Hokage monument. It looks like Mount Rushmore in the United States of America. I really wanted to see it someday. But this has to be better than it is. Those people really built this entire village, and their faces are meant to watch over and protect the village below, Kurenai-chan. The Kunoichi beamed as her newest friend turned to face her. Over the week they had traveled together, the pair formed a fast friendship from their caring dispositions and Kagome's eagerness to learn about the village Kurenai cared so deeply about. In a foil to his wife, Inuyasha was far more apprehensive. Those faces look like Ryukotsusei-1. Well, he was sealed within a mountain by the old man. His anger at the stone faces did not go unnoticed by Guy, Kakashi and Anko. While the 4 of them did gain varied amounts of respect for each other over the past few days, the shinobi were apprehensive at the sight of his simmering anger. He's certainly a strong fighter and likely more dangerous than I am, Kakashi humbly observed. If anything bad happens, it's going to be a handful. And I'll have to take care of it now the chakra exhaustion has worn off, the lazy ninja silently mused. Bash swish. The tiny green tornado materialized. Distracting Inuyasha before stopping a small distance from the group with both of his fists pumping up to shoulder height, head thrown back for a statement. Alright. Now we are back in the village. I swore that if I could not pull off this mission without getting injured, then I'd run 500 laps around the village and climb the Hokage monument 200 times on my hands. This I must do to make up for my unacceptable failure, and it cannot wait any longer. Yosh. Kakashi spoke up. Guy. Shouldn't we talk to Hokage-sama about our mission and tell him about Kagome-san and Inuyasha-san first? You're right, Kakashi. First, we must report to Hokage-sama right away so I can begin. But. A gleaming smile and thumbs up were given to his new acquaintances. Inuyasha-san. Kagome-chan. Afterwards. I, the devilishly handsome beast of Konoha, promise to give the both of you a personal tour around our beautiful, youthful village. To make up for my inappropriate negligence. Now follow me and I will show you the way to the Hokage office. The Iwood. Konoha's eccentric green EXASPERATION2 took off at a sprint. Tearing through the streets with a long cloud of dust in his wake. Anko groaned in resignation. Kurenai pressed her lips together in frustration. With a loud, long groan from Kakashi. Inuyasha was gasping at what just transpired, Kagome's face was covered with shock. Does he do that very often, Kurenai-chan? At her new friend's question, Kurenai drooped with resignation. Her hand palming her face. Far too often, Kagome-chan. Yet, Kakashi had a very thoughtful expression. Hokage-sama probably will assign someone to show them around the village. But leaving the pair with Guy any longer might be a sadistic punishment. Maybe Kakashi began thinking. If I'm ordered to show them around Konoha and make sure no incidents happen while they stay here, then Guy won't be able to rope me into another one of his rivalry challenges. This could work for me. Unfortunately, Guy does have a point, Kurenai-san. Turning towards the group. Let's talk to the gate guards, then move to Sandium-sama's office as soon as possible. Kakashi proposed, a smile clear through his mask. Kagome smiled. Thank you, Kakashi-san. Inuyasha, let's go. The woman's eyes caught a pair of twitching appendages. What's wrong, Kagome? She smiled softly at her husband's question. Your ears, my love, she explained, reaching into her jacket for a red bandana. She stepped behind her husband, tying it around to cover his ears. We don't want to draw too many questions yet or make anyone curious enough to pull on them, again. The Hanyu's eyes widened before a slight smile crossed his face. Thanks, Kagome. But hey, wait. Jerking his head around, a grumpy face met Kagome while the bandana fell away. Why didn't you bring 1 hour earlier so Anko and Guy would stop trying to grab them? I could have really used it days ago. GGGGGRRRRRRRRR. Kagome's irritation soon grew into a sweat drop. Whoops. Haha. I guess you could have. Sorry about. With a smile of apology, she turned and began to walk towards the village gates. But you have one now. So why don't you just tie it on yourself and follow the shinobi down to the village? Anko was laughing at the couple's antics while Kurenai beamed at the cute sight. A few minutes later, the Konoha shinobi and their companions were at the gates where Guy had begun a series of handstand push-ups. After a few explanations, they were allowed to pass through with a couple of thanks from the guards for saving the team earlier. The couple gained a few curious glances as they walked through the streets, mixed into weary eyes and casual smiles. Inuyasha glanced around, taking in the streetlights, electric bulbs, apartments several stories high and certain playgrounds. This village looks a lot like Kagome's era did. At least there's one thing to make it a little easier. Maybe some ninja food will be here as well. I haven't had any for 11 years now. Bull Kagome herself was having similar thoughts. HHMMMMMMM. At least staying here for a little while wouldn't be uncomfortable. They might have some care products here and other luxuries I could take back for Sango, Moroku, their children and Lady Keed. Plus, some extra running water wouldn't be amiss. Hey, Kurenai-san. Do you think we could do a little shopping sometime if the Hokage allows us to stay for a few days? Sure, Kagome-san. I'll make sure Kakashi will show you later. Let's save the girl talk for another time. Kakashi interjected. We're here. 0. Hiruzen Sarutobi groaned at the effort. The god of shinobi, sensei of the Sannin, and longest-serving Kage in his village history was locked in a deep personal struggle. Against his most persistent and conniving adversary within the village. Paperwork: the Hokage noted order forms for new equipment, mission records of the fresh genin teams, a civilian request to build a swimming pool within the village, a recently destroyed training field, and preparations for him to travel to Sunagakure for the next Chunin exams finals in 3 months. And more. That matters is finally settled, placing one report away in his desk. Glancing at the clock, the elderly Kage noticed that another 2 hours would pass before he could take a break for lunch or visit the academy to check on the students. Kami. If I have ever done a great service for this village. Please end an A. Wump wump wump. Hokage-sama. Yes, please come in, the Sarutobi replied to a knock on his door. As it opened, a young secretary named Yurika3 stood in the doorway. Team Kakashi has returned from their mission. They have a pair of foreigners with them who are eager to speak with you. Send them in, immediately. I will debrief them and see what their companions wish to speak of. As Yurika nodded at his request, the Hokage let a smile of relief cross his withered face. Thank you, Kami. Steadily, Kakashi, Guy, Anko and Kurenai entered the office. Followed by a pair of younger adults. The third Hokage eyed the new arrivals carefully and noting their hands were conjoined. The young lady appears to be in her mid-20s, the man some years younger. Her attire is that of a Miko, while her movements carry of grace of one accustomed to such a lifestyle. Yet her hands appear strong and supple, not delicate. He appears quite feral with fangs in his mouth. A relative of the Inuzuka. Okage-sama, Kakashi addressed the seated leader. Our mission against the Rouge ninjas near the Iwa border was successful, but narrowly ended in our deaths. The enemy were more numerous than the report suggested, compassing of 10 enemy ninja. That news immediately caught the Sandem's full attention. Take a breath from his pipe to calm his growing nerves, the figure nodded for the story to continue. 3 of the enemy were former Iwa Jonin, while the remainder were Chunin. After finding their camp, we attempted to retreat but were discovered by a party returning from the opposite direction. During the fight, Guy-san and Anko-san were injured. Kurenai-san and I were driven to exhaustion. We managed to defeat 7 of the enemy, but the Jonin still remained. I was about to order the others to retreat when our new companions intervened. Turning his head to the pair, Kagome and Inuyasha cautiously stepped forward. The pair could both feel deep spiritual power from the elderly Hokage. Far more than they had encountered since the death of Naraku. They ambushed 2 of the enemy Jonin and defeated the third as she was trying to escape. Then offered healing to the 4 of us and stayed until we were recovered. We owe them our lives, Hokage-sama. Otherwise, the mission was a success. We have kept the bodies of the Jonin, along with 1 Chunin with the explosion-style Kekkei Genkai and the heads of the remaining Rouge Chunin. From the circumstances, we lacked the chakra or necessary storage to seal away each of the bodies. As Kakashi finished the report, Kurenai and Anko stepped forward, depositing the storage scrolls on the Hokage's desk. The Sandame nodded at the gesture. Then summoned his Anbu to take the scrolls to the intelligence division. As the Black Ops ninja arrived, Inuyasha grew tense. Kagome was equally surprised but gave his hand a comforting squeeze. She noticed how the other shinobi did not react with any hostility to the masked figures. Once the Anbu had left, the Hokage's attention fell on the demon couple. You have my deepest and sincerest thanks for saving my ninja. I am Sarutobi Hiruzen, Sandame Hokage of Konohagakure. The pair of you are welcome here for your compassion and selflessness. Please, may I have your names? The warmth, gratitude and weight of his voice touched Inuyasha and Kagome. Both felt a soothing presence from the man, conveying the sincerity in his words. With a smile, Kagome spoke up. My name is Higurashi Kagome. And this is my husband, Inuyasha. Hokage-sama. We have a lot that needs to be shared with you. Especially relating to how Inuyasha and I can return home. Hiruzen's eyes widen in confusion. What problems do you have? Hokage-sama, Kurenai spoke up. After we became more acquainted with Kagome-san and Inuyasha-san, we made some startling discoveries. The sort that would be best to remain a secret from anyone who may overhear. And potentially a serious threat to the village. The Hokages expressed grew from surprise to focused concern. Glancing at the other joined present, each of them nodded at Kurenai's description. The Hokage requested Kakashi to lock the door, then activated a series of privacy seals around the office. Leaning forward with curiosity and anticipate, the Sandame folded his hands. And the recount of the situation began. 2 full hours passed as Inuyasha and Kagome explained their identities, the worlds they came from, and how the pair had crossed at different eras between the Bone Eaters well. Adding details such as necromantic practices, demon tribes, and hostile encounters both had experienced in their lives. Culminating in their fight with Onkanchu no-O, discovering the Void Well, and arriving in their world with the fight between Kakashi's squad and Rouge Nin nearby. Once we came close to the battle site, Inuyasha and I waited silently to determine what was happening before making ourselves known. The Konoha ninjas were grouped together, while the remaining Rouges were standing on a branch. Kagome was finished their story, clenched her empty fist at the memory. We heard one of them gloating about murdering innocent people and selling the body of Kakashi-san for some form of favor with their own village leader. That was clear enough to establish who was in need of our help and who needed to be stopped. Inuyasha cut down 2 of them from behind before they used some strange power to bring a giant whip scorpion to the site. Once both of them were destroyed, Kakashi-san lost consciousness. Kurenai-chan and Anko-san were wary of us but needed our help. I healed them both and Guy-san and we spent the night in a hotel within a nearby village. The next morning we gave them the same story that was just recounted to you and went back to the Void Well to investigate it. The Hokage kept his eyes trained on the young woman. Searching her and made Kagome shuffle under his gaze. Well. This day has certainly taken an interesting development. I am certainly getting far too old to keep up with such revelations. The Hokage took a few breaths of his pipe, remaining silent for several minutes. Making Inuyasha impatient. So? Do you believe us or not, old man? If not, you can ask the other ninjas here to make sure our story is the truth. He shouted. Kurenai and Guy bristled at the man's disrespect. While Anko gaped at his audacity and Kakashi was distracted. The assembled party relaxed as the Hokage stirred. Kakashi. Did your squad find anything to collaborate Kagome-san and Inuyasha-san's descriptions at this void well? And if so, please describe them. Everyone's eyes turned to the man under a giggling blush. With his head buried in the latest copy of Makeout Paradise. Kagome noticed this as well, growling at the offending piece of literature. I can't believe the Kakashi-san just reads that lousy porn just out in the open like that. HHHHHH. I should have just listened to Kurenai's advice when he offered to let me read it. During their travels together, the Miko and Inuyasha had asked about Kakashi book. Rather than describing it aloud, the man offered it to them to read though. Inuyasha's face had grown redder than his cloak and led to some muttered over different positions later with Kagome. Recalling the incident, she spoke up to the Jonin. Kaakashi-saan. The man replied, not taking his eyes off of his place. Do you recall what I said about taking that book out in front of me? Kagome requested, her voice edgier than nails on a chalkboard. Forcing Kakashi's single good eye to widen. He promptly shut the book and packed it away, recalling the same woman trying to shoot it with her bow 4 days earlier. Ahahaha. Sorry, Kagome-san. I'll keep it away. From now on. Kakashi, the Sandaime growled in a whisper. I just asked you if your trip to the void well uncovered anything to confirm the accounts given by Kagome and Inuyasha. Ha. Don't bother asking him, Hokage-sama, Anko spoke up. Everyone's attention turned to her. Smirking at the attention, the young lady explained. Everything they said is true. We found the well, and Kakashi suggested sending a couple of shadow clones down to scout it. My clones jumped and found hundreds of different kanji carved into the walls. After speaking about a couple of them, it found itself in a vortex and definitely emerged in a different location. 2 different clones went down and found some shudder. Hostile encounters. Where they ended up. Kakashi suggested coming back here to go back with a larger squad in a while to explore all of the different dimensions through the well and find the one where Kagome-san and Inuyasha-san came from. With a nod, the god of shinobi began to formulate new plans. I see. Thank you for your descriptions, Anko-san. Thanks to it, I believe you are the best person to describe the events of the mission and would like a written report of the mission and your discoveries made by tonight. What? The Hokage smirked at her reaction. That might remind her to think twice about overruling a mission leader. However, from Anko's reaction, going into details about what she found through the well clearly left her disturbed. As for our guests. Dai-san. Yosh. Hokage-sama. Please find Yamanaka Inoichi and inform him to come here immediately. I would like him to confirm the stories of our guests beyond even a shadow of a doubt. Then you are dismissed. What? Anko cried indignantly. Yosh. Very well, Hokage-sama. Please excuse me. Oh, and Kagome-san and Inuyasha. The man threw a thumbs up, joined by the echo of a guitar in the background. I shall join you later for the promised tour of our village. Once I complete my 500 laps. I wish you a very good day. The man calmly left the room, then broke into a sprint down the road. How come he gets to leave early and I get the mission report? That's a long way from fair, Hokage-sama. With a cunning grin, the Sandaime glanced at Anko. Did you not notice how anxious he was growing during the course of this meeting? Any longer and the man may have roared out of this building to return to his own training without warning. While in your case, it is an obvious choice from your involvement with the void well and since Kakashi fell unconscious during the course of your mission. Anko began to sulk, struggling to conceive of any counter to the Hokage's facts. While the leader of the village turned his attention back to the Miko and her husband. Now, Inuyasha-san. Kagome-san. I have sent Guy to fetch the head of one of our ninja clans here in the village. Yamanaka Inoichi. Your story is quite far-fetched, but the evidence points to a large amount of truth to your words. The matter of this void well is certainly a very concerning topic. As should any more hostile figures emerge from it, they could cause considerable damage to the people and land of our nation. I will help you return to your home. While Anko and Kakashi are certainly right that this well needs to be investigated. However. Kagome grew tense, hearing a change in the Hokage's tone, while Inuyasha's hand twitched for his sword. But it had been left outside the office rather than carried a weapon in the Hokage's presence. Something Kakashi and Kurenai spent 5 days persuading the Hanyu to go along with during their return to the village. Well, I do believe your accounts. As the leader of this village, the safety of Konoha must remain my first priority. I need to have even more evidence than what you have provided to justify sending a long-term mission to the well on the good faith of your words. Inoichi-san specializes in mind-reading techniques, whether invasive or voluntarily. Would one of you have any resistance to him taking a look through your memories to ensure beyond any doubt that you are being honest with me? Once he can confirm that you have spoken the truth, then I will arrange for you both to have a comfortable stay here in the village until a specialized squad can be organized to help find your original home and ensure you return there unharmed. This brought some different reactions to the couple. Kagome found it slightly aggravating, though reasonable. While Inuyasha understood the man's position but was very resistant to having someone invade his mind. Eventually, Kagome volunteered for the mind read and only hoped that the man perform it would respect a degree of her mental privacy. 0. Elsewhere in Konoha, a group of 4 boys were lounging about in the academy kunai practice arena. This is the right way to spend a day here, huh? And Iruka-sensei's a little too lame to think about looking for us here. Right, Akamaru? Brup. Ha. Yeah, you're right, Kiba. And how's that manga you're reading? Naruto grinned at the other boy. The pair had decided to skip class and chill out in the one place the teacher would never think to look for them. They weren't alone either. A chubby boy was enjoying a quiet peaceful snack and a 4th was napping on the ground. It's just a drag that there's no cloud in here. But still a good quiet place to just do nothing. Shikamaru Nara whined. Kiba Inuzuka commented on the boy's laziness. While Choji continued to munch and Naruto just enjoyed the good time with the closest boys he spent time with. None were really any deep friends with him, but they were better than nothing. He smiled at the company before drifting into a small nap. 0. Within the Hokage's office, Inuyasha twitched with anxiety. His eyes darted around, distrust lingering on the other occupants while his wife was being mentally investigated. Kagome herself was seated near the wall with a tall pale blonde man resting a hand on the crown of her head. It had been going on for 20 minutes since Inoichi had arrived and Inuyasha was growing concerned for Kagome. Just when it couldn't remain quiet any longer. Inuyasha rose to his feet as Kagome's eyes fluttered open and Inoichi stepped back. The woman smiled lightly at Inoichi. Thank you. For respecting my wishes over certain memories, Inoichi-san. The man smiled in acceptance and respect. Before turning to share his finding with the Hokage. Hokage-sama. The ninja grew more serious at the tone in his voice. I have triple-checked Kagome-san's memories. She and Inuyasha-san are nomads from a very different dimension than ours. Well, Kagome-san herself was born in a separate place and time from him and crossed over between them due to a uniquely powerful well. Similar to the one that brought them here. With a nod, Hiruzen lit fresh tobacco in his pipe. Thank you, Inoichi. Now, we must plan on how to accommodate Kagome and Inuyasha's stay in our village. And address this revelation over the void well. While the bridge it forms to alternative worlds and truly amazing, the threat it could pose to our village can be a startling one. Fortunately, only our new guests have come through, rather than a more hostile individual. Actually, that may not be very true, Hokage-sama, Kagome addressed him. What do you mean, Kagome? Inuyasha asked. As 6 pairs of curious eyes fixed on the young woman. With a deep breath, Kagome organized the various thoughts she had mulled over for the past few days and began to share them. I actually think that more people have passed through the void well than you realize, to our home dimension specifically. This hypothesis is pretty clear from how we can understand each other so well. The moment we arrived here, Inuyasha and I could understand the language that all of you speak. If we came from dimensions completely cut off from each other, then it would have been like a foreign country with different dialects. We'd probably need Inoichi's mind jutsu to communicate with each other at all. Plus, Anko-san and Kurenai-chan both recognize what a Maiko is, showing that you have a very similar religion here as the one in our home. And beyond that, electricity, feudal lords known as daimyo, even samurai and ninja, are present in both of our dimensions. This is just an idea. But perhaps multiple people have crossed over to our world specifically due to void well and brought these cultural influences with them. Although, some things like chakra don't exist in our world, well, you don't have tribes of demons roaming around. Everyone gaped at the woman. Amazed by her intellect and the strength of the evidence to support her explanations. The Hokage was especially impressed. A very sharp and mature mind is carried by Kagome-san. Very few would have given such details critical thought, rather than disregarding them. I doubted anyone but Shukaku Nara and perhaps Minato would have been able to apprehend such apparent trivialities as vital facts. I must say, you are very sharp and deeply thoughtful woman, Kagome-san. Evidently our worlds have had more contact than anyone realized, except for you. All the more reason to aid you and Inuyasha to return home and set up security measures around the void well should the worst happen in the future. However, it will take some time before you can return. What do you mean, Hokage? Inuyasha spoke, cocking an eyebrow at the man. Yeah, what gives? Anko cried out, mildly. They saved our butts, so we've gotta repay them. Plus Kakashi and I can both make a few clones to take care of the job. Just send us back out and we'll take care of the problem in less than a week. Enko. The Hokage must have his reasons. Or needs us on another mission somewhere else and we'll need to organize a different squad. Let's hear him out. Chided Kurenai. With a proud grin, the Sandaime continued. Kurenai is correct. Each of the shinobi who were sent on this mission will require some time to recover from their injuries before I let you leave the village again too suddenly. In addition to searching for Kagome and Inuyasha's home, the team sent with them will be ordered to record every kanji within the well and the different worlds that they correspond to. It would likely take weeks to fulfill such a mission. It is impossible to examine the well so thoroughly within a single day without fatal chakra exhaustion. Nobody here in the world can produce thousands of clones so carelessly. All the while, Naruto Uzumaki failed yet another clone jutsu at the academy. Back in his office, the Sandaime continued. Kurenai. You were the only one in the group to avoid any injuries during the mission. In 4 days, you will lead a team of Chunin to the Void Well, along with Inuyasha and Kagome. On a B-rank mission to record the different dimensions of the Void Well and aid the latter in returning to their home. Until then, I will cover the expenses for them to stay in an apartment here in the village. As the shinobi nodded at his orders, the Hokage thought over his decision. Should anyone else discover the existence of this well, they may decide to travel to various worlds themselves and possibly draw more threats back to our village unintentionally. Danzo especially would advocate sending teams through the Void Well to search for new weapons or powers for the village to use. But sending out multiple Jonin or an Anbu squad would certainly be noticed by him. The Chunin led by Kurenai will be members of my own Anbu under new identities. That should be enough to avoid any suspicion. Hokage-sama. Hirizen's focus returned to the present. To see Kagome before his desk, dragging Inuyasha behind her and a deep smile adorning her face. Thank you. For aiding us to return home. And for the trouble of letting us stay here in your village for a handful of days. We are both deeply grateful for your hospitality. Followed with a deep bow of respect. Inuyasha smirked at his wife's familiar cordiality. Inuyasha, I said we both are deeply grateful. Rigta soft tremor shook his spine, followed hastily by another bow at the Hokage. 3 figures rose to their feet as Hiruzen Sarutobi joined the couple. It is the least I can do to express my own gratitude. Far too many times misinformation or unforeseen events have claimed the lives of those under my command. Your selfless intervention saved not only the mission, but also the lives of Kakashi, Kurenai, Guy and Anko. Along with many others who would likely have been killed by those Rouge Ninja had they managed to escape. I hope you enjoy your stay here. I will not charge you for any necessities or services either, in light of your actions and the abundance of crucial knowledge we have gained thanks to you. After finalizing a handful of details, most of the group left the Hokage's office, while Inoichi stayed behind. Kakashi led them to a smaller office, with a request for the apartment keys the Hokage had promised the demon couple. After collecting them, the group moved through the doors of the Hokage building, with the ladies chatting all the while. So you really lived in a medieval lifestyle for the last few years. Man, I need to take you shopping for some products, girl. Anko promised Kagome. Not so fast, Anko, Kurenai slyly chimed. You did volunteer to write up the mission report for the Hokage, remember? After the purple-haired woman froze, Kurenai turned to Kagome. But, I know I could use a cup of sake after that mission, plus a few sticks of dango. Would you like to come along after seeing your apartment, Kagome? Dango. Anko screeched with joy. Oh, we are definitely going out for a nice time. You can bet your ass on that, Kagome. As the Kunoichi began to make plans, Kagome turned to her husband. Not wanting to drag him along for girl talk, but also reluctant to leave him in a strange new village. Hey, Inuyasha, Kakashi spoke up. I'm not doing anything for the rest of day. Would you like a tour of the village while Kagome is out with Anko and Kurenai? Amiko smiled at Kakashi's offer before locking her eyes with Inuyasha. His concerned gaze met her pleading one, and that settled it. Kakashi quickly showed the group to the apartments. A series of buildings owned by the Hokage. Position. Usually meant for housing Anbu squads or high-priority figures during their stay in the village. The building's simple, pristine appearance belied a more calculating function. Security over the rooms inside was both thorough and detailed. From listening devices to sensory seals to detect chakra, chemicals, weapons and more. Nothing could happen inside without the Hokage and Anbu's immediate alert. For the safety of the occupants and to neutralize any hidden threat should they emerge. Otherwise, it was very luxurious to Kagome and Inuyasha. Their rooms were on the 15th floor. It held a modern kitchen with all the necessary tools. Kagome nearly squealed at the sight of a working refrigerator. Plus, a comfy living room with 2 couches and a television. 1 bedroom, plus an adjacent bathroom. And a narrow balcony through the living room. After looking over the place and Kagam jumping back on a large queen-size bed like a schoolgirl, the group left the apartment for their separate errands. And some very fateful encounters with a certain blonde demon container. And the dawn of a new morning crept over the village. People began to stir from their dwellings, adults preparing or work or caring for their homes, and children trying to steal some extra time asleep. While some parents were tending their children, including a certain lecherous monk. Why? Shhhhhh hush, the man tried to soothe his youngest child. A son named Chikashi, only 1.5 years old. The infant was quite mad, demanding all of his father's attention. Leaving the older twins to care for their siblings. The older girls, Akemi and Chisato, were trying to shake the other 3 children awake. The pair took strongly after their mother, and if not for their clothing could easily be mistaken for the other. Both were quite mischievous and enjoyed confusing people, although none of their tricks could work on Kagam, Inuyasha, or their mother. Meanwhile, Moroku's oldest son, Miyatsu, began to walk outdoors to get firewood to make breakfast. The boy resembled his father as much his older sisters took after Sango. Although, he held an almost sacred reverence towards girls. From Sango's obsession to prevent him from gaining his father's lecherous habits. Back on the Futons, a younger set of twins were still asleep, making their father chuckle. A fraternal pair, one a boy, the other a girl. Moroku's second son, Sheiko, had his mother's dark brown hair but the angular face of his father. While the girl, Kahoru, had her father's eyes and height but her mother's facial features. Moroku grinned at the pair. Especially Sheiko, named after his maternal grandfather too, to ensure one name from the demon slayers would live on. I truly am a blessed man, Moroku pondered in reflection. To think that just beyond a decade ago, the need to have at least one child dominated my every thought. With the wind tunnel's curse sealing my fate. Briefly, an old memory echoed in his mind. Flashback. Father. Father. No. Don't run towards him, Moroku. No. Father. Father. Hhhh, let me do mushin'. The demon wind spread out, encompassing the man a stone's throw away. Their strength grew, a spiraling vortex, even as greater power burst from the man's cursed hand. Present. Moroku left his reminiscings, smiling deeply at his family. But now neither of my sons have that wretched curse. They will have their own lives without a bleak outlook on how long they will remain on this earth. And I will be here to see them grow in men. Beyond even that, dear Sango and I have 3 strong daughters. A true and growing family, greater than I ever imagined prior to meeting her. Good morning, Auntie Rin. Miyatsu's voice came from the door. Sure enough, a graceful and prideful woman entered the house. Rin stood slightly taller than most women her age and carried a serious demeanor. Yet, beneath it she was still the same kind, open heart of her childhood. Moroku rose to greet her, while Akemi and Chisato succeeded in making Kahoru and Sheiko open their eyes. Good morning, Lady Rin. How does Lady Keed fare? He asked. The woman smiled. She is growing better by the day. Old age can take a heavy toll on all humans, but she is very happy and stubborn. Almost too much of both to ever leave this village. Moroku nodded, glad that despite outliving nearly every human he knew, Keed would stay with them for a while longer. Aunt Rin. Chisato and Kahoru cried in delight, charging into her welcoming arms. After a brief hug, she thanked the pair and moved to relieve Moroku of his infant son. Leaving the man free to prepare breakfast for them. As he moved about the kitchen space, the man conversed with Rin. How's Lord Sesamare lately? Have you received any word from him? Glancing up from the infant, Rin nodded. Yes. My lord journeys in the north to satisfy his curiosity with rumors of powerful forces in the region. I wish to accompany him, but Lady Keed's health led me to stay here. So now. Moroku. A familiar cry rang through the house. Turning his head, the sight lit a powerful shock in Moroku. Sango's face and eyes were haggard, standing there in her demon hunter's armor. Mama. Mom. Kachan. Mother. Near immediately, her clear fatigue gave way to joy. One look at her children, and the woman felt deep happiness empower her heart. Falling to her knees, 3 girls and 2 boys latched onto any part of her they could reach. Pure glee and innocence that their father did not share. Something is wrong, Moroku quietly realized. Sango always wears a regular kimono within the village unless danger is at hand. Plus, it's the early morning. If she had been that close to our home this past night, she would have come all the way rather than camp somewhere else and return at dawn. I don't see Lady Kagame or Inuyasha either. Sango. What is? Big brother, a familiar voice called out. Turning his head, Moroku saw Kahaku standing in the threshold. Uncle Kahaku. Miyatsu and Kahoru cried in delight. Rushing forward, their uncle quickly wrapped each child in his arms, then stood up suddenly. I'm sorry. But something happened while we were absent from the village. I need to talk with your father right now. Kahaku spoke. A glint of happiness trickled from his eye at the sight before him. Glancing up, he noticed the other guest. Lady Rin. Shock colored his voice before a welcome smile grew over Kahaku's face. "Hello there, Kahaku," Rin voice replied, joined with a deep smile. The friendship between both was quite strong, even from their shared travels with Sesameru's entourage. They were interrupted as Shikashi began to wail. His arms flailing toward Sango. Soon, the woman rose to her feet and was cradling the baby to her heart. While Moroku called towards Rin, a question easy to spot in his eyes. Once she nodded, the monk's gaze shifted to Kahaku and motioned towards the door. Kahaku nodded, moving outside where they could talk without spoiling the children's happiness. Once outdoors, Kahaku did not wait for the questions. "We managed to defeat the demon without much struggle. However, grave misfortune befell us afterwards. Lady Kagome and Inuyasha are missing. We have no idea where they could be or what terrors may have befallen them. 0. Ah. Now that was just what I needed." Anko groaned in pleasure, stretching back after finishing a plate of dango. "Mmmmmmhhh," Inuyasha nodded, munching on his own stick. "Gotta say it, these are pretty tasty, Anko-san." Kagome chuckled with him, "I'm certainly glad you knew this place, Anko-san. It's been so long I actually forgot how delicious restaurant cooked red bean soup can be, or some good old dango sticks. And this?" Kagome raised a cup of coffee to her lips, reverently. The raven-haired Maiko hummed at the taste flowing softly past her lips. "Almost just like back with Mama, Soda and Grandpa. They even made it light and have sugar and milk." The pair had been dragged by their purple-haired acquaintance to her favorite dango stand for lunch, along with Kurenai. The other female was enjoying a cup of vodka 3, her hypnotic eyes tracing over Kagome, humorously. Kurnia chuckled, with a teasing smirk. "You may have to be careful with your husband, Kagome-chan. I think I heard you purring like a cat after that last sip." "Huh?" The woman cried out, embarrassed. While Anko and Inuyasha froze, the former quickly breaking down with laughter. "Ahahabahaba better warn her husband before he all dogs and starts jazzing her around." Anko joked about, nudging Kurenai. Whose straight face collapsed, "Ha ha 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 ha." Inuyasha grew annoyed, then worried for their friends. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr Georgia. Georgia, yeah. But maybe you should call them the leash that keeps him obedient. A statement that brought Inuyasha's glare towards her. Yet he felt Kagem's hand on his arm and stayed silent. Really? Well, you should be informed that I am more than capable of making an extra set. And casting them over whomever, whenever I choose. Would you like to experience that sensation for yourself? She coolly asked Anko. Immediately the younger woman stopped, growing silent and stone-faced to hide a trickle of fear in her gut. Gulp. Yeah. But you wouldn't dare to try doing that to me. Alright. The Maiko smiled. Perhaps. Your table manners and jokes have started to encourage me. Some obedient school might do you some good. Are you trying to patronize me? The purple-haired girl shouted. Someone should. You've got almost no respect for anyone and are way out of your league if you want to leave my wife scared of you. Inuyasha stated proudly. Earning himself a peck on the cheek from the recipient of his praise. Soon Anko began complaints towards the couple while Kurenai was blinking in awe. Hagam-chan is barely reacting and takes it all in stride. It is impressive how she can appear to be mature and poke fun at others at the same time. While Inuyasha-san is highly protective and has great faith in his wife. Both of them would probably make good Jonin sensei were they ninja. Gradually, the group finished their lunch before leaving the restaurant. The Kunoichi were part of a rotating shift assigned by the Hokage. Indebted though he was for them saving his ninjas, the Sandaime was aware that someone skilled enough to ambush two Ryujinin and smite a Jonin with one blow could be a risk well inside his village. Subsequently, and in light of possible encounters with conveniences or installations that did not exist in their dimension, Anko, Kakashi, Guy and Kurenai had been ordered to accompany them throughout their time in the village. That had been 2 days ago, and the four shinobi had organized a time schedule for at least one of them to be on duty at all times of the day. Kakashi had spent the first day giving them a general tour of the village. While earlier that morning, Kurenai and Anko and show up to the apartment Hiruzen had allocated for Inuyasha and Kagem to use for their stay. The Hanyu couple had spent the morning wandering about Konoha without any crucial destination or plans. Before Anko's sweet tooth had demanded they make a stop for her one vice in life. The group left the restaurant soon after, only for Kagem's eyes to wander up to the most distinct monument present. Wow. She murmured in awe, swept up under the gaze of the village leaders, watching over the village they were charged with. Until a hand fell on her shoulder. Kagem. Inuyasha called over, splitting her attention. His eyes followed hers up to the Hokage faces. You really admire them that much, do you? I'm sorry Inuyasha. But I'm afraid I can't help but marvel at them. The ones who were entrusted to lead and command everyone in this village. Etched in stone to watch over their charges, even after giving their lives or their lifetimes for it. I can't help but remain impressed with them and the lengths their people went to ensure their leaders would be remembered. Kurenai and Anko were listening, their respect for Kagome rising at her praise for their home. If you want, it is possible to go up there above the faces, Kagome-chan, Kurenai informed her. Really? The Miko inquired. Her new friend nodding in return. It can be a long walk, but a small park lies above the Hokage's faces. It even provides an amazingly scenic view of the entire village and further beyond. Anko grinned, the last dango skewer in her teeth. The best time for that is at sunset, when the light casts all over the village and the faces. In the meantime, I wanted to hit up the hot springs after that crazy mission we had, but the Hokage's report took away the chance. Why don't we kill time in there, then head up to the monument before finding some place to chow down on some dinner? Kagome thought over the suggestion before looking towards her husband. He didn't have a problem, and soon they were following Anko and Kurenai to the next destination. 30 minutes later, sweet sighs of content rose with the steam. Signaling that the women's hot springs were blissful and occupied. Inuyasha was outside the building, taking the chance to sharpen Tsuga near a tree and keeping a watchful eye for anyone trying to peep inside. No way I'm taking any chances that some pervert might be trying to get close while Kagome is in there. If that happened, Kagome's temper would make a lot of explaining to the old man Hokage. Inside, Kagome was sunking past her shoulders into the heavenly waters. You, we're not underselling these hot springs, Anko-chan, she declared. This is really perfect and oh so rejuvenating. The woman sunk deeper, letting the heated water engulf her body, even while others eyed her jealously. Living in feudal era had done wonders for Kagome's figure, not to mention her own chest-level assets were envious in their own right. Anko and Kagome didn't care, lounging about in the rejuvenating water to unwind after the mission that nearly ended their lives. Damn, this is one of the best parts of any mission and always amazing whenever you come by, Anko declared, raising her arms behind her head, relishing the comfy sensation and showing off her own assets for all to see. While Kurenai frowned at the move, retaining a more conservative posture. I admit there are some amazing nature springs near my home village, Kagome described. But enjoying a more luxurious one here is pretty nice. 2 hours later, and after Inuyasha took a brief time in the men's section, the group found themselves strolling up an inclined pathway leading to the hill. Kurenai took another glance at Kagome, her eyes widening in respect. The older woman set the pace, striding alongside her husband with athletic grace up the road and stairs they had followed. Kagome-chan, the Genjutsu mistress called ahead. I'm quite surprised that you are walking ahead of Anko and I so well. It seems that living in a feudal period really has some benefits for your health. Kagome glanced behind her, slowing her pace to talk with them. While Inuyasha joined up. Yes, that's right. The air is so much cleaner and I really enjoy how active that lifestyle can be. Thankfully, it isn't too demanding as other people live. My job is as a priestess or exorcist rather than a farmer or some other back-breaking type of work. In fact, from what you've both described, it's pretty similar to how both of your jobs as ninja can be. GGHHHMMMM, Inuyasha made a small grunt. Kind of, I'll admit. Fighting various demons that seen humans as little more than food or a threat has kept us both sharp. Though since Naruto was finally killed and the Shiken Jewel erased, we've rarely had any truly destructive forces coming in without warnings. Kagome nodded, while Anko and Kurenai recalled the various enemies the pair had described during their travels back to Konoha. Neither Kagome nor Inuyasha had not gone too deeply into their interactions, and the ninjas could tell some things were withheld. But they respected that, as the different skills both Inuyasha and Kagome had supported their stories. After I joined Inuyasha in our home, Kagome continued. I made a lot of strides in different healing practices and learning to perform exorcisms and various blessing rituals. My mentor, Lady Cade, really was a deeply patient and dedicated teacher. There was a lot I needed to learn and relearn about the feudal era after being gone for 3 years. I bet you probably miss a lot of things from your old home as well, Anko playfully accused her. Your eyes were drooling over the shower and fridge back at your apartment. Plus, we almost had to drag you away from the restaurants and clothing stores in the village, she teased her. Kagome frowned through her blush. So, I like a few commodities. What's so wrong about that? It has been 8 years since I last saw them. Inuyasha frowned slightly. A little put off at the sacrifice Kagome made to be with him. It's undeniable how much Kagome is an unparalleled woman. How did I become so fortunate to have her love after so much time with hatred and lonesomeness? His thought traveling to the past. I still think it's amazing. Kurenai cut in to avoid another playful clash of egos between Anko and Kagome. You really were separated from Inuyasha for 3 years after that jewel was destroyed. Yet still kept your love for him deep in your heart. To the point that you were able to return but gave up your old life to be with him in the past. Even after he was willing to leave you behind with people that care about you just as much as he does. Kagome smiled at those words, her hand lacing with Inuyasha's before he shared the smile with her. Anko almost gagged, ugh. Not more gushiness, Kurenai. The others chuckled at her antics. Before Kagome thought back to the decisions Kurenai had described. Yes. I honestly didn't feel complete without Inuyasha in my life, squeezing his hand to convey those words to his heart. We had been through so much, protecting each other, helping the other grow, and accomplished such amazing things together. Our bond grew through so much until all we cared about was each other's happiness. A deep grin of pure love spread across Kagome's face. Wow, Kurenai murmured. It's truly amazing that in the end, it was the love for him and his for you that allowed you to be reunited again. By the way, do either of you have any children of your own since you were married? The question was eager and innocent. But Inuyasha had lowered in shame. Anko jumped in, ha 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 ha. I bet that dog really loves to romp around with her every night. Hey, how is he once he gets in heat, huh? Anko? Kurenai admonished her. Don't ask such private questions. I doubted Kagome-san wants to discuss any private tea. Only now did the kunoichi notice Kagome had stopped. It was unseen, but the mention of children caused Kagome's heart to plunge like a stone. Her body was frozen, dead in her tracks. The woman's hand clenched over her lower abdomen, grasping for something that wasn't there. Hey Kagome-chan. Kurenai cautiously called. Inuyasha growled until Kagome placed one hand on his shoulder. Some tears still pooled in the corners of her eyes as she faced the two companions. I'm fine, Kurenai-chan. And no, Inuyasha and I don't have any children of our own. Let's continue to the mountaintop. I think I can see it from here, she spoke, pointing to a high railing against clear skies at the crest of the hill. The group moved towards it, with Anko sharing a worried look with Kurenai. Both silently agreed not to bring up children anymore. Once she reached the peak. Kagome gasped in awe of the view. Even Inuyasha found a sense of beauty in the orange-streaked skies, casting the same shade of light as one stage of life began to end. Spanning the entire village and even further beyond, the sight was truly breathtaking. But the glance to his wife, it was clear to see the view before them was filling her with a sense of wonder. Driving out the pain and despair of inner wounds and failure she felt moments ago. Wow, she murmured. Glancing around further until her eyes rested on a patch of blonde hair crouching on top of the faces. Hey. What are you doing so far out there, little boy? Hey, what's wrong? I like to sit here and I never fall down. Come on, I'm not bothering anyone, Dadabeo. Kagome frowned at this response, deeply worried for the child so close to the end. Please come back where it's safer behind the railing. I'm just worried that you might hurt yourself. The boy blinked in surprise at her words. I come up here like this all the time, Dadabeo. Don't worry, he said, raising a thumbs up towards them. I've never fallen off and it can be great to see the village from up here. Just like my face will be one day, believe it. Kagome herself grinned at the boy's words, following their meaning. But still tried to maintain a sense of urgency. Well, perhaps you should take some care to live long enough to become the Hokage and not take risks before becoming a ninja. Please, come over here away from the dangerous edge and stand with us, she waved towards them. The blonde child was gapping before he timidly stepped forward towards the Maiko. That's it, come one right here just like that. Kagome coached him. Meanwhile Kurenai and Anko had caught up and stood back from the encounter. Sharing a look, Anko made a shadow clone and sent it to the Hokage. Well, Kagome felt relief once the child was beside her on the opposite side of the railing. That is much better. Why were you out there like that and what is your name? She asked. You don't know who I am? The whiskered child cocked his head, confused. We're not from this village, Inuyasha declared plainly. And what could be strange about someone not knowing who you are? Are you related to someone important or the village leader? The Hanyu's deep voice made the question sound aggressive, but the boy barely noticed. His head began to drop in sorrow. No. I'm not related to anyone. I wish I could have someone cool like the Hokage as my dad, but I don't have any parents, he murmured before perking up with a massive grin. But I don't ever let that get me down. Because I'm Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto. And I'm gonna become the Hokage of this whole village, someday. Dadabeo. The boy's hands clenched with determination, while his smile grew wider at the proclamation. Kagome could only focus on his words, though. No parents. This child is an orphan. She turned towards Inuyasha, whose own face was taciturn. Then her eyes crossoved around the park space. Realizing that anyone else present was avoiding herself and the boy. Nobody was keeping an eye on Naruto, which to her implied that he can come up alone. Kid. Are you really alone? No family or anyone to look after you here? Inuyasha demanded. Naruto's eyes looked up, unblinking with his smile clear. Nope. I live on my own, but that's not a problem for me. Once I get out of the ninja academy, then I'll become the Hokage in no time, and everyone will look up to me. Kagome could barely process his words. While Inuyasha recognized telltale signs of the mask over Naruto's face. But before either could respond, the growl of a hungry stomach reached their ears. Ahahaha. Guess I was up here so long I forgot it's almost time for dinner, he rubbed the back of his head, embarrassed. Why don't you come with us? Inuyasha had invited the boy, while Kagome looked at him in surprise, then with a smile. It can be uncanny how often he and I can read each other's thoughts or share the same one simultaneously. I agree, she said, turning back to look at the surprised boy. Naruto-san. Inuyasha and I are new to your village, so we don't know about different places to stop for dinner. Do you think you could help us find somewhere? And in exchange, we'll for you to eat with us. Naruto's face began to slip. His eyes were wide at the offer, wondrous and clear. Why yeah. I know where the best food in this village is. Ichiraku ramen shop. And I can defiantly show you guys there if you let me eat with you, Dadabeo. Kagome smiled, forcefully. Recalling some orphan children that can come to Cade's village after losing their families to the chaos and turbulence of the warring states. Before extending her hand towards Naruto. Come on then. Will you take my hand and show us where? The boy stared at the hand for a few moments, tears trickling into his eyes. Before Inuyasha was beside him and gently pushed his shoulder. Go ahead and take it, kid, the warmth in his words not reaching his face. You'll have a big meal on us and we'd like your company as well. A blink and sniffle followed before Naruto slipped his mask back on and took Kagome's hand. Leading them down the mountain before she noticed Anko and Kurenai had been replaced. Kakashi-san. When did you arrive her and why did Anko-san and Kurenai-chan leave? The one-eyed ninja simply waved at her from a few meters away. Oh, the Hokage needed one as his office and the other got called away to her usual job. I wasn't going anything and decided to come down and meet up with you both. So, I suppose you've taken this boy to dinner at Ichiraku's. With a nod, the four of them went down the mountain, Naruto feeling lost and confused, while Kakashi did most of the guiding towards their destination. Taking a winding but less populated route to avoid larger crowds that went unnoticed to Kagome and Inuyasha. Until they moved closer to their shop and the Hanyu stopped in his tracks. His nose twitching in the air. This smell. That salty, warm, delicious scent. There's no mistake. Ignoring everyone, he dashed forward, kicking up dust in his wake. Following his nose to a brightly lit hut where a dream came true. Ninja food. Alright right. Inuyasha exclaimed, ducking into the ramen stand. A pair of customers looked at him, puzzled by the statement. Ninja food. Kakashi called, just behind his companion. I admit, Ichiraku's doughs make good ramen. Is that really what it's called in your home, Inuyasha-san? Oh it's a type. Yeah, a type of ramen in my own home. Or, rather it used to, the Hanyu explained. My wife used to bring some from her own village, but after we got married, they stopped delivering it to either places. Why'd? Shouted Naruto, after catching up with him. How can anyone live after no ramen? Old man Tucci, you've gotta help this guy, Dadabeo. 0. A new day was on the horizon. The welcoming sunlight casting over Konoha, slipping through windows and doors to gently coax the people from their slumber. And Kagome nearly purred with content. The young woman was awake after a deep and comfortable night. Cuddling into her sleeping husband's arms, she relished in his strong, welcome touch amidst the comfy mattress and soft sheets. I'm in heaven, she silently vowed. Then simply lay there, determined not to fall back asleep and miss the feeling of their closeness. After another hour, Inuyasha cracked open one eye. He and Kagome found it very difficult to leave the bed, wrapped in each other's arms. Eventually, they pried themselves apart long enough to move into the bathroom for a shower, together. 30 minutes, lots of moans, and a couple screams later, they were in the kitchen. Inuyasha wore his hakama and a white shirt, while Kagome donned some shorts and long-sleeved shirt that she had bought with Anko and Kurenai, with a bathrobe over top. She was preparing breakfast, while the pair talked about their thoughts on Konohagakure. I admit. This place is a lot different from either your home, that Tokyo place, or anywhere I've seen in our era, Inuyasha commented. Yes. It truly is amazing, Kagome agreed, before her eyes became sorrowful. Though it no longer seems as compassionate and benevolent as I previously though. Not after learning about Naruto-san last night. Inuyasha's thoughts traveled back to the day before. The image of Naruto's face crept into his head. The boy had been clearly happy during dinner and the chef Tucci and his daughter were kind and generous to both him and his wife. Afterwards, Kagome had insisted on walking Naruto home and fussed over the boy slightly once they reached his apartment. From there, they returned to their home and shared their feelings together. I admit, he kinda reminds me of myself, Kagome. Hundreds of years ago, after my mother died. Every time I would find a river or a lake, the look in my reflection was the same one I saw in the kid's eyes. He's alone, but hiding it in a much different way than I did. At least he wasn't filled with fear or anger at everyone around him like I was. Kagome's hand rested over his, expressing her own feelings to him. We've seen children like him before. Still, I can't believe that he lives alone either. Especially since this village, more like the city, would certainly have an orphanage for children like him. Who knows, maybe the Hokage would let us take Naruto with us back to Kade's village if we were to ask him, she suggested. Inuyasha smiled at her answer. HHH. I like the sound of that idea, Kagome. With the matter settled, Kagome finished their breakfast and both sat down at the table. Just after they finished, a knock came at the door. Kagome moved to the bathroom to change while Inuyasha stood up. Yo, Kakashi answered once it opened. Hi there, Kaka. SHHHHHHHH. The Jonin glanced around before he turned a pleading eye at Inuyasha. Please, just let me in. Guy's been tracking me everywhere for another challenge and I need somewhere to hide. Inuyasha was confused but still let the man through the door. Kagome emerged and suggested that they spend a beautiful day near a lake or through the forest surrounding the village. Kakashi nodded and began to lead them over to one of the unused training grounds. 0. Naruto's feet raced up the hill, arms pumping constantly with the boy at a hard sprint. He was breath hard, pushing for more out of his tiny 8-year-old body while grasping a kunai in his right hand. The path was clear on a hill he was running up. Dozens of trees covered it, with bright warm sunlight pouring down, appreciated by some, but only making Naruto's run all the harder. He knew where the finish spot was, eyes searching for it to come into view and signal the end. There it is. Harder. He thought, driving himself at a faster pace. Before throwing his arm forward, stabbing the kunai into a tree as his left clicked a stopwatch it carried. HHHH, darn it. I just can't beat it. He cried. After noting his time, Naruto looked up the tree. Kanji were carved into the bark, listing names and times with Kiba 337 at the top. The one Naruto was trying to beat for. Darn it. He gasped, hitting the tree before looking ahead, dejected. With a grunt of determination, the boy turned on his heels, running down to the starting point for another try. But on the way, a shapeless image danced above him, on the edge of his vision. What is stopping to look up, the boy saw 3 other ninjas leaping through the trees, moving fast before disappearing through the growth. None sparred more than a glance at the boy who followed them with eyes wide. That's it. He exclaimed. That's how I'll beat Kiba's time. Iruka-sensei did that no problem when he carried me through the Black Woods, so doing it without an extra load will be easy. Believe it. With that idea, Naruto hurried back to the starting point and cast off with his timer. Sprinting from the clearing to a nearby tree, the boy began to climb easily enough. Before reaching higher and higher, then casting around to spot a large branch some meters away. That one's close enough. He thought, before squatting down and making a jump. 0. It was early afternoon now. Kakashi was laxing about, his book in hand outside of the Konoha General Hospital. The man's ears and nose were open, cruising his surroundings and waiting for some indication that Kagome and Inuyasha had left. The couple had been insistent on going inside and hesitant to mention why. Apart from looking to schedule an appointment for Kagome. Some minutes later, the copy nin caught their scents and 2 pairs of footfalls growing louder. Quickly replacing his book out of Kagome's sight, he stepped out to meet the pair. Kagome-sen seems to be grasping her husband's arm and he appears more serious than usual. Better to not ask, then Kakashi decided. He simply waited for the couple to reach them and slide in step behind the pair to keep them both in his sight. The trio moved through the village aimlessly, focused on moving forward and little else. As she walked, despondency filled Kagome's every step. Thoughts of the appointment she made at the hospital churned in her mind, blending hope with despair. Maybe we'll find some answers. If it truly was bad fortune or… Hey, come on, stop looking at me that way. I didn't do anything. A familiar voice, deeply upset, cried from up ahead. Pulling Kagome's attention from herself to another. You're nothing but a monster. And a blight on this village that should disappear. Inuyasha and Kagome froze. Both recalled others throwing such words at them, at Shippu, at Jinenji and other Hanyu, both had encountered before. The couple shared a look before rushing towards the voices, ignoring their guide. Both spotted a loose crowd close by, enclosing a small child. I'm not a thing. Naruto shouted at an adult, looming over him. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Uzumaki Naruto. Stop calling me in it. Or a danger. Dadabeo. You're an abomination. Now get away from my store. The man glowered, his leg reared back before a kick sent the boy to the dirt. Naruto skidded on the ground, covered in cuts and bruises. The adult gave him another kick, harder, drove the boy further into misery and pain. His cries bringing a sadist's glee to the adult. Come near me again and… Naruto-san. Bastard. Gawk. Immediately, the man found his world spinning. A sharp sting covered his face before the ground came up towards his chin. What the hell is going on? What are you doing to Naruto-kun? Hey Kagam-chan. Inuyasha-san. The demon container mumbled in awe. At the sight of the clerk's hateful kick, Kagam's hand met his face with a vicious lap, enough to send the broad man tumbling to the ground. Without missing a beat, she left him down and crouched beside Naruto. Naruto-kun. Do you remember me? Are you hurt badly at all? She fussed him, noticing a few scrapes that seemed to be from the fall. Quickly and carefully, she lifted Naruto from the dirt and into the safety of her arms. Before caressing his face. What happened? She gently spoke to the bewildered orphan. Before the crowd recovered their wits. Why are you helping that abomination? Do you know what that is? What it has done? A smack like is more than well deserved towards it. A shrilling voice cut through Kagam's ears. At those words Kagam was steam personified, her blood was boiling, while shock at hearing those words left her mind frozen. Glancing up to their source, she spied a prissy woman with a face of disgust pointed at Naruto. Kagam's jaw hung open, before the ice was thawed and furious glare crossed her face, fueled by anger and disgust. The perpetrator paled, dotted at the ferocity burning in the Miko's eyes. From what I can see he is an innocent boy. Being unjustifiably hurt by the man in front of my husband. And how can you refer to an innocent child, unfairly abused, with such disgusting words? She yelled in response. Kagam. Look around. Their faces, her husband growled. Glancing towards him, Inuyasha was crouched over, his claws spread and ready for anyone who came too close. Looked around, Kagam's shock and revulsion grew. All around them, faces in the crowd were colored with surprise and confusion at Inuyasha, while scorn, refusal, disgust and even satisfaction were made towards Kagam. Yet. No, she realized. They aren't looking at me. Those only have surprise in their eyes. Those negative feelings are being leveled at a realization. Kagam shifted herself protectively around Naruto, pulling his face into her blouse to shield the boy from their assaulting glares. Inuyasha's blazing golden eyes cast around at the painfully familiar looks in the crowd, forming a power deterrent. At the words of it, abomination and monster, his memory set off with recalls of people who mistreated him in the past or whom would revoltingly greet him and Kagam whenever they traveled to a different village that was unaccustomed to a hanyo and a human being married. His sharp ears twitched, detecting loud whispers around them. Why are they defending it? They probably don't know about it. Just more trouble brought by that boy. Wished I'd kicked him myself. Must be like a pair of demons helping the… Inuyasha's hand flew to grasp Seiga, while Kagam herself was growing. Both could feel the palpable hatred from each of the assembled villagers towards the blonde orphan nearby. What the hell is wrong with all of you? Inuyasha shouted. A kid gets beaten down by this bastard and all that you do is watch her gloat. Where the hell could you have gotten any reasons to do that? You don't know then. A yell came from Inuyasha's feet. The shopkeeper that Kagam had struck glared ignorantly and indignantly at the hanyu. The man struggled to rise, spitting a glob of blood from his mouth. That little shit deserves it. The troublemaker. Shorter than a moment, the shopkeeper's eyes were open with fear. Inuyasha's furious glare invoked his senses with terror, forcing him backwards in pure fear. The red-clothed figure moved forward, but a hand on his shoulder stopped him. Inuyasha, a voice came forth, sending deep chills down the hanyu's spine. Come here and stand by Naruto-kun. I want to speak with this one. As she spoke, Kagam's husband faced her. When their eyes had met, Inuyasha felt an even stronger chill through his bones. Scarcer than a blue moon, he knew how to see when Kagam was royally pissed. Deliberately, without sparing a glance at the offender, Inuyasha moved towards the boy and hefted Naruto upwards. After settling him in one arm, Inuyasha kept his eyes on the crowd, daring any to approach, missing the bewilderment on the child's face. Once their charge was safe, Kagam gracefully stepped towards the man, her face shadowed by hair. What is your name? The man in question blinked, before frowning at the woman. I'm Geist, and that's all you learn of me. Demon lovers aren't welcome in this village, and vile scum should. What in all this good world could give you the right to speak in such repulsiveness? Who in any mind would dare to abuse any child and think themselves justified? Kagam's shoulders were hunched up, her hair a blazing mane of dark fury none would dare to contradict. Driving back the crowd as a lioness defends her young. Any ninjas present began to ready their weapons. While Geist was scrambling further away, with every word she roared. Had you any children I would deeply worry for their futures with a figure like you in their lives. Naruto-kun cannot possibly be a demon if that is what you see in him. I have no care for what that excuse came from. Only atrocious, repulsive soulless beings would bully an orphaned and defenseless child. And nothing can infuriate me more than you. The pause came in Kagem's tirade, fixing Gist with a look even Sessamaru would tremble before. My name is Higurashi Kagem. I am spiritual Maiko, staying in Konohagakure temporarily. As a priestess, I can sense a person's spiritual purity or demonic energies that surrounded people. Her eyes cast over the crowd, some beginning to straighten in respect demanded to a priestess. Naruto-kun carries no demonic aura in his soul 6, no matter whence he came from or what happened during the past, I can sense nothing in his soul that would suggest the influence or association of a demon. He is a solely innocent child, she declared. Impossible. Another person shouted, muscling his way into the open. You've gotta be a fraud. There is no way possible for that boy to lack any connection to a demon. From the newcomer, a ninja with red fangs adorning his cheeks, broke his declaration short. Kagem's eyes were turned on him before a figure interposed themselves between them. Now, I doubt that is any way to treat someone who guessed in this village. KKKKK Kakashi-san. The fang-cheeked ninja stumbled backwards. Before he could speak again, the copy nin appeared before him, drawing attention away from Naruto, Inuyasha and Kagem. It is highly disrespectful to question a Maiko over their position or accuse them of dishonesty, Kakashi stated calmly. I can vouch that Kagem-sama truly is a Maiko and one who has been trained to either fight or heal in equal measure. She and her HUSBAND5 Inuyasha saved my life and that my squad on a mission against Rouge Nin, whom nearly killed us. Kagem-san was extremely selfless in healing my companions and I Hokage-sama himself allowed Inoichi Yamanaka to examine her mind and everything she has spoken is the truth. In response, the Sandaime has allowed them to stay here to repay their selfless efforts. I'm sure all of us will have a better day if everyone were to disperse. Kakashi's soft demand, etched with steel that refused any complaints, coaxed the ninjas before him to quickly back down. Murmurs were sailing through the crowd, leaving ripples of uncertainty behind them. The civilians recognized Kakashi by his name and enigmatic appearance. While the news of how the strangers defending Naruto had managed to defeat Rouges that could nearly manage to kill him was deeply unsettling. Yet the real impacts to come were among the ninjas in the crowd. Another person saving one of their own was no light matter to the regular Konoha shinobi. The revelations that some of their more prominent comrades owed this new couple their lives swayed many to their side. Even the ninja Kakashi had confronted was visibly confused. These ninjas began to help that crowd dissolve. Though Kagem and Inuyasha kept Naruto nearby, silently daring anyone to even try or approach the boy under their guard. Soon, the only person left was the tattooed figure whom insulted Kagem. The man now stood by Kakashi, glaring at the Maiko and Hanyu with deep resolve. Inuyasha kept watch over the crowd while Kagem met his eyes with her own. Yet the figure grew stiff and bowed deeply towards her. I apologize for my insult towards you Maiko-sama. I am of the Inyazuka clan and our fellow shinobi, our pack, is valued above everything else. For you to save Kakashi-san and more of my fellow Konoha shinobi, I apologize. Quickly, the man straightened. His eyes rested on the blonde child held close to Inuyasha. They remained filled with spite before smoke engulfed the Inyazuka and no trace was left of the man. Kagem found the street had been deserted, even the instigator, Geist, had left with the others. She paid the situation no mind, preoccupied with concern for the boy in her company. Naruto himself could barely speak. His eyes resting only on Inuyasha. They helped me. Kagem Senshi and after one called me a monster Inuyasha for the first time in his long, lonely life. People had protected Naruto. Stood up for him, helped him. The boy could barely think from the act of random kindness done on his behalf. The soft touch came to his arm and the boy saw the face of an angel. Open, light, powerful, with the promise of safety and sensitivity, brighter than a diamond. Kagem gave a warm smile to the boy. But it did not last once the scrapes, tears and bruises caught her eyes. Naruto-kun. What happened to you? Carefully, she took his arm and rolled the sleeve. Unveiling an ugly mash of dried blood, dirt and leaves. Looking over him with the eyes of a healer, several more tears in the boy's pants and shirt were clear, joined by scratch to his face. I was out in the forest and tried running through the trees. But I missed a step for a branch I was jumping for and fell down, he explained. I hit through some bushes and branches during my fall. They broke my fall but got all these cuts and scrapes. I was out of band-aids at my apartment and the usual place I go to was closed. That's why I was trying to get some new ones when the mean man kicked me out and you came along. Kagem felt no relief. His words stoked her anger, looked back to the store nearby and around the streets. He needed to come here for help. That would mean walking through the village for anyone to see and nobody noticed or gave a thought to help him her reasoning came. Far worse than that, either the crowd or that terrible excuse for a person would certainly have seen his injuries clearly. Either their hatred obscured it or they did notice and took glee in adding to his suffering. After turning over these morbid facts, Kagome glanced around for a destination and made a decision. Well then, let's get these taken care of as soon as possible. Naruto-san, the place Inuyasha and I are staying is close by. I can clean and heal these for you, far away from anyone else that could glare or treat you poorly. Would you like to come? Naruto was unable to speak. The warmth of her gentle touch, something he had never experienced before. Her hand turned his face to look straight at her, to meet her smile. Too many first experiences had come to him all at once. For one instance of his life, protection, care and concern had all come forward in the open streets. Rather than isolated to a single old man or a restaurant. Inuyasha saw his eyes and buried the flicker of pain in his heart. Kid. Climb up onto my back. You're pretty banged up, so don't even think of saying no. I'll give you a lift to our place, but you've gotta hang on tight. Okay. Soon, Naruto was positioned on Inuyasha's back while the Hanyu turned towards Kakashi and Kagome. Kagome. I don't want anyone else giving him a hateful eye. We'll take the faster way. Just meet us at the room soon. It wasn't a request, but Kagome nodded all the same. All those words spoken by the crowd. Inuyasha must have had to say him during his childhood. I've never seen him have such altruism. With a smile, she gave a light peck on his cheek, filled with pride. Unnoticed to both, Kakashi used the distraction not signal a watching Anbu discreetly. Informing him not follow and inform the Hokage immediately. Moments after, Inuyasha was leaping over rooftops with Naruto and Kagome turned back to Kakashi. Kakashi-san. Thank you for your help. Inuyasha and I are going to return to our apartment to help Naruto-chan after that horrible mistreatment. Would you mind coming with us? I have some questions to ask about him, her compassionate tone demanded. Even the Jonin needed a moment to adapt from the weight in her words. And no. That wouldn't be any trouble at all, Kagome-san. Kakashi answered. Let's get going. After what you did for Guy and Anko, his pain will likely be gone in minutes from your care. He suggested with an eye smile. 00. Outside the windows of his office, the Hokage's watchful eyes cast over his village. The day was cloudless, warm, and calm. People were moving about, missions were finished at a steady rate, and the past few days had saved him the loss of 4 very prominent ninjas. Moments such as these truly make this hat lighter on my crown. The serenity of this village certainly can place the sacrifices many have made in the past into a new light. The cold gaps left by their absence can be counterbalanced by the warmth and serenity everyone can see in this moment. The Hokage lit fresh tobacco for his pipe as 4 particular faces came to the forefront of his musings. As had the specter of their saviors. Ada Kakashi, Mitarashi Anko, Yuhi Kurenai and Might Guy. Their talents and skills aside, those 4 are among the best of a generation that will soon rise to the position of Jonin Sensei. Each have long lives ahead of them and much to pass on the generations that follow. I have seen enough young talents lost too early and their generation already suffered the tragedies of Uchiha Obito and Nahara-in. Inuyasha-san. And his wife Higurashi Kagome-san. Husband and wife, one a human, the other a half-demon centuries old. They certainly are truly rare beings in this world or any world. And I owe them both 2 debts of gratitude, now. The view of his people left the Hokage's sight. Resting on his desk were 2 scrolls. One a draft for the mission to the Void Well, the other a report from the Higurashi's encounter with Naruto. Kakashi-san is needed for another mission as soon as his recovery is complete and Anko-san is needed in the interrogation department. Kurenai-san was the least wounded and she could use more experience before a promotion to full Jonin. With Inuyasha-san present, power should not be an issue to investigate this Void Well. Their mission can be ready to depart tomorrow. And yet. The Hokage lowered his head, trying to organize his conflicting desires. The skills and power those 2 have displayed would certainly benefit the village if they remained here. The loss of the Uchiha clan and Itachi's deep cover assignment has led to a serious blow to Konoha's strength and capacities. Adding Inuyasha's power and Kagome's unique spiritual abilities may go somewhere to make up a fraction of those losses. She may even have potential to learn medicine and is a highly intelligent young woman. Even more so, the 2 of them befriending Naruto has become a mixed blessing. The man sighed deeply. Visibly reluctant to face the upcoming departure of Kagome and Inuyasha. For the impacts it may have on Naruto. Those 2 are completely ignorant of the burden that he carries and may even befriend that child if they learned of how he has lived. Yet telling them directly could leave that boy's own safety compromised should they decline to remain here. I still cannot comprehend how the open hands they gave that boy cannot be imitated by his own generation or others whom were little more than toddlers when the Kyuubi attacked. Hokage-sama. The center of the room was taken. Shimmering through the air, an Anbu had shoeshined inside and crouched before their leader. "Yes, report," Hiruzen responded, his softly commanding eyes locked on the Anbu. 3 minutes passed, the foreigners Haddock Taisho accompanied today encountered the Jinchuriki. A crowd of people had surrounded and ostracized him, while shopkeeper Gaius assaulted him with a kick. "What?" Hiruzen's tone lashed outwards, sharper than a whip. The man was grasping his pipe enough to crack its stem, alarmed by the news Naruto had been hurt. "Hi." However, the man with white hair and his wife saw it happen and intervened. They stepped up on Uzumaki's behalf and led to a verbally hostile encounter with the villagers. One civilian referred to Uzumaki-san as a demon, and the Miko nearly scattered the crowd with her furious shouts. The woman identified herself and proclaimed there was no demon's power or spirit within Uzumaki-san. An Inuzuka stepped forward and nearly broke your law surrounded Uzumaki's role. Haddock Taisho intervened, however, and revealed how the couple had saved himself and his team. From there, other ninjas helped disperse the crowd, though Uzumaki-san had some injuries. The Inu man took Naruto onto his back to reach the apartment they have occupied, while Haddock Taisho is accompanying the woman to the same place. The Hokage looked on, blinking in surprise. After some time, he glanced back to the mission draft, then shifted to face the building the Higurashis had occupied. Sure enough, the aged shinobi could make out the cloak of the fire rat, leaped across buildings and balconies to find the one he was staying in. "Well now," the Hokage nodded, a conspiring grin crawling over his face. "I will deal with the repercussions of this incident myself, Anbu-san. You're dismissed." But the salute, no trace of the figure remained. Leaving the Hokage to depart his office and move towards the apartments with all his haste. A plan slowly taking form in his mind. And Kagome strode through the hallways of the apartment building, with Kakashi close behind. Soon, she reached the correct door and threw it open. Her eyes found the balcony door inside wide open, before cruising around to find her husband and the injured child. She quickly found them. Naruto was seated on the counter near the sink, with Inuyasha nearby running a cloth around the boy's bare arms and chest. "Inuyasha," she softly called, while Kakashi moved to a corner near the doorway. "You got here faster than I thought." The Hanyu complimented, his ears twitching lightly. As she moved towards him and Naruto, Kagome stopped his hand with her own. The priestess quickly looked over Naruto's body. She was surprised to see he barely had any of the smaller cuts that she would expect from such a tumble. Some bruises on the boy had even begun to color. I had never expected him to heal this quickly. Still, there are plenty of scrapes and skids on his arms and legs. Thank Kami that nothing hit his head, Kagome surmised. "Alright. Naruto-kun, can you move into the bathroom for me? And Inuyasha. Can you fetch the medical ointments and herbs from my satchel? I'll finish cleaning Naruto-kun's injuries there and take care of any on his legs." Inuyasha nodded, before leaving to fetch the bag as Naruto nodded, somewhere in a daze, moving off the counter and into the bathroom. Kagome followed, setting Naruto to sit on the toilet seat as she knelt down in front of him. "Naruto-kun." At those words, a pair of deep blue eyes nearly melted Kagome's heart. As they met her own brown eyes, a blue sea of awe and hope met the conviction and compassion of fertile brown earth. Swallowing back her emotions, Kagome returned to her task. "I can make any injuries you have better right now. Then, if you want, I can fix those tears in your shirt. Can you hold still for me for just a short while?" she promised. Naruto looked up silently. Her smile, it's like those other people give to kids I see at the playground when they get hurt and a parent comes and he thought. Until the question came through and he began to nod. Inuyasha returned with Kagome's bag, then moved back through the doorway to lean on the far wall, keeping his eyes on the pair all the while. Kagome herself also reached for a first aid kit from the cupboard, recalling how she used to help her brother Sauda with his own OEs when he was little. And doing the same thing for Shippu and Sango's children. "Well, I never thought I would treat cuts and bruises with modern band-aids and gauze after our wedding," she thought. Modern-esque bandages and first aid was certainly another, plus that she was guilty thankful to have in Konoha. The Hanyu couple kept their attention fixed on Naruto, while Kakashi leaned back, present but disinterested. Or at least, he appeared to be. His eye crossed between the three figures, unable to stop a growing curiosity in his mind. "Inuyasha-san won't take his eyes off of them," he observed. But that look is not the same kind of concern he had for Kagome-san in the Hokage's office. His focus is resting only on Naruto. "I hope Hiruzen-sama doesn't regret their chance encounter with Naruto yesterday." When Anko and Kurenai informed him they had met, it made sense to let it play out to keep Kagome and Inuyasha from learning about the Kyuubi. Still, after that incident, Kagome is not going to leave the matter of Naruto's predicaments alone. And Inuyasha might be even more demanding than her, he observed. "Well, the Anbu shadowing followed my silent orders, and Hokage-sama will likely be here very shortly." His lazy disposition aside, Kakashi could be observant and insightful. Especially with all the time he took to watch and think. Now, he continued watching them as Kagem's voice kept Naruto calm and easy under her care. The boy would wince at some minor stings, but Kagem's herbs were more comfortable than other disinfectants would have been. Minutes later, she was tying off the last bandages and the boy was on his feet again. "Domo arigato Kagem-san," Naruto cried, happily. Walking around the corner with Kagem just behind him. He was smiling, as if the pain and discomfort was gone. "You're very welcome Naruto-san," she replied before glancing at the clock. "Wow. It seems lunchtime has come around already. Hey." Her voice reached everyone present. "Anybody hungry for a midday meal?" "Huh? Food? Yeah. That's be great, Kagem-san, Dadabayo." Naruto replied, his face lit up by the offer, nodded eagerly. "I wouldn't mind a small bite if it's not too inconvenient, Kagem-san." Kakashi gave a simple reply, while Inuyasha nodded. Kagem moved to the stove and began looking over ingredients they had been bought 2 days past and began to prepare rice, pork strips and several vegetables. "Hey kid." Inuyasha spoke up as his wife had begun to cook. "That bastard who kicked you around outside. Does that kind of thing happen often? People treating you like unwanted trash?" Kagem's face left the counter, frowning at her husband while Naruto stopped in his tracks. "Oh yeah. It's happened before, but not a lot," the boy explained. "Almost everybody treats me like that. But not all the time." Inuyasha was surprised as the boy perked up at the last comment. "Iruka-sensei started to be a lot nicer to me 2 months ago. And Tuchi-san and Nai-chan are always really happy to see me. And so is Jiji-san." Kagem was surprised. "Jiji-san? You told us yesterday you live alone, Naruto-san." "Yeah. That what I call the Hokage." At the one simple word, the boy's face grew a wide smile, raising one fist to his forehead. "But people won't pick on me forever. Once I become Hokage, someday, they will have to respect me. So, no matter what happens, nobody can get me down for too long," he declared. Although, the brave words did not fool Kagem or Inuyasha. "You seriously want to become the leader of everyone here?" An incredulous shout came from Inuyasha. Narrowed eyes, joining with a glare, bore into Naruto from the Hanyu. Causing the boy to take a step back, fearful. "Inuuyasha." Kagem's melodic voice reached her husband with an impending promise. "Huh? Oh no. Sorry. The guardian began waving his arms at her, desperate to ward off a certain threat. "I'm sorry Naruto. Kagem, I didn't mean to scare the kid. Sorry. Kakashi watched as Kagem eyed her husband before giving a simple nod and leaving him unhurt. Then, she turned to face Naruto across the room. "Naruto-kun." The boy turned at her call. "You truly wish to become the leader of this village despite what everyone here has done to you?" The boy's eyes blinked at the question from beside a frozen Inuyasha. As the Hanyu tried to digest how Kagem had not said a particular word, Naruto was nodding his head, again. "Yeah. If I just let others choose who or what I am, then I'd be weak or a coward. That's why I'm gonna prove them wrong by becoming the Hokage. This place is my home too, so I'm not just gonna leave it because somebody else told me to." The small child crossed his arms, trying and failing to look final or official. "Only I get to decide who or what I do or what I am. Nobody can change that because I don't want them." He didn't see it, but Inuyasha's face was lit with pure amazement. Kagem was the same until she was beaming at the child's words and determination. "He doesn't seem to be treated too differently than other Hanyu we have met, and unlike them, he lacks any parents to protect or soften the blows that other people deliver to him. Yet this boy still retains a kind heart," she reflected, a flicker of pride for the child growing in her heart. Returning to the meal she was preparing, Kagem worked carefully to make enough for everyone present. Peppers, chicken, soybeans, cashew nuts, and the rice is nearly done. And more than enough for the 4 of us. A mouth-watering smell saturated the air while Naruto asked Inuyasha about his sword and repeatedly begged for him let him use it. Eventually, lunch was made and everyone moved to the table when CRK. A knock came at the door. Kakashi offered to answer it while Naruto smelled the beautiful meal and Kagem encouraged him to eat up. The boy picked through the rice bowl for the juicy pieces of meat, avoiding any green pieces before him. Kagem was watching him carefully and quickly brought up him avoiding the vegetables. Causing a small argument between them, but Kagem was patient and even more stubborn than the 9-year-old could be. Inuyasha watched them with amusement, ignoring the visitor Kakashi had let inside. Eventually Naruto reluctantly swallowed all of his lunch. "It seems you have been a welcome guest, Naruto-kun," an ancient voice called to them. As Naruto glanced over his shoulder, a surprise was standing by the doorway. "Gigi. I was just telling Kagem-san and Inuyasha-san about you." Sure enough, the Sandaime Hokage stood there, with a smile of awe and happiness etched on his face. Naruto slid off his seat to run over and hung the old man, while Kagome and Inuyasha were giving him some hard looks, especially the latter. His attention remained focused on the boy, stepping back to place one hand on Naruto's shoulder. "Hello there, my boy. It seems you enjoyed lunch with these two quite a lot. Did you thank them? Especially after those some difficulties." "GGGRRRRR. Difficulties," growled Inuyasha. "Are you senseless and blind, old fart? You call what this kid goes through difficulties? I saw the looks in those bastards' eyes. And let me tell you, I know them all too well. How can you let this happen to the kid? I thought you said." "Inuyasha. You're upsetting Naruto." Kagome's words yanked Inuyasha's outburst to a halt. Yelling is not going to help here. Inuyasha's eyes moved to Naruto and the innocent anger shining from the child. "Why were you yelling at Chichi-san? He's the Hokage. And a really, really great one too, Dadabeo." For some minutes, Inuyasha glanced between the boy and the older man. Until, slowly, he shook his head. The fiery mood shrinking to a simmer. "Sorry, Naruto. Guess my anger got away on me again. If you like the guy, maybe he isn't that bad," he acknowledged. Now Kagome was surprised, glancing between both of the boys. Inuyasha being apologetic and empathetic with someone else. The Sandaime himself regarded Inuyasha carefully, filing away their interaction with a measure of keen satisfaction. "It is alright, Naruto-kun. Inuyasha-san was only expressing his opinion. And given that his anger was out of concern for you, there is nothing here to apologize for." The Sandaime Hokage spoke up. "This day has certainly taken an interesting turn." Reaching into his robes, the Hokage produced a child's shirt and handed it to Naruto. "My boy. Why don't you put this on, rather than wearing that torn one?" The boy grabbed it, thanking the old man before changing his shirt quickly. The Hokage himself had to stifle a frown at the bandages across Naruto's chest before watching the boy walking up to the woman at the table. "Hey Kagome-san. Are you sure you can still fix my shirt?" the boy asked, with hope-filled eyes the Miko could never in any world refuse. "Of course, Naruto-kun. I would be glad to, once I find the right colored thread to match it," she answered, gently taking the shirt from him. "So?" Inuyasha called over with a more patient tone, demanding attention from everyone back to the topic that had been at hand. "Old man. Are you going to explain why those people in the streets were so horrible to the kid? Or just put a band-aid on the problem and hope it will go away when you aren't looking?" he growled at the Hokage. The elder met the Hanyu's glare with a patient eyes that could outlast anyone. Deliberating for some moments before settling on his decision. "Kakashi-san. I wish to speak with the Higurashis in private. Would it be an inconvenience for you to take Naruto-kun to a nearby park and look after him for a short time while we discuss certain things in here?" The gray-haired Jonin shuffled lightly, rubbing the back of his head with an awkward stance. Well, if you are the one making the request, I suppose I have no choice. If Naruto-san wouldn't mind my tedious company." "What the hell? Are you trying to brush this away by keeping it out of sight, old man?" Inuyasha asked. Causing Kagome to rise to her feet. "Inuyasha. Hokage-sama. He is the leader of this village, so you really should start calling him that." She spoke, scolding her husband, believing respect would get them further than confrontation. But Inuyasha heavily disagreed. "Come on Kagome. There are more important things right here than giving undue respect to an old fart." With a sigh, she closed her eyes, muttering, "Sit boy," mindful of the building they were inside. And a purple glow bathed the room. Wah crash. Inuyasha only had a second to cry before his face met the floor. "Now are you going to apologize to Hokage-sama?" Kagome questioned her husband. "Rough man alright. Sorry about calling you that Hokage-sama," he spat out. While the village leader was blinking in surprise. He was not alone. Naruto was glancing between Kagome and Inuyasha with surprise and terror. "How did she do that? That sit thing, can it happen to me, or Hokage-sama? Is this what Shikamaru means by grown-up girls being really scary?" Still, Kakashi had seen it before and stood up from his seat. "Well, Naruto. Let's get going. Hokage-sama does want to talk with them alone for right now," he suggested. "But I am certain that all three of them would like you to come back here once they finish up." "Oh, we definitely would," Kagome responded. With a gentle smile towards the sun-kissed blonde. Kakashi nodded as he and Naruto left. Hiruzen sat down across from Inuyasha and Kagome. Drawing the pipe from his robes and lighting some fresh tobacco, he prepared himself for the long explanation ahead of him. "Why?" Inuyasha was about to speak when Kagome beat him to the punch. Her voice and tone carried a strength to make even death hesitate. Why were people treating Naruto-kun like that? He was just looking for some band-aids after falling down in the forest and they treat him like the plague. If you recall learning of our lives and world, Hokage-sama, then the way others were treating him was no different from how other Hanyu like Inuyasha are seen in our home dimension. Hokage sighed. I take it that Kakashi-san did not tell you anything. No, he didn't. But someone was. One of the people were about to say something before Kakashi shut them up. Inuyasha spoke quite aggressively. The hardened look came into Hiruzen's eyes as he met Inuyasha's demanding gaze. What happened to make people say that kid is a demon? He's not one, I can tell that without any doubts. And I know that this kinda thing happens to him a lot. I take it you questioned Naruto about his life, Hiruzen replied, not missing a beat. Didn't need to, the Hanyo replied, curling one hand in a trembling fist. The look in his eye told me everything. Strong, confused, and demanding answers, behind a wish for all of it to stop. I've seen that look in a lot of people before. Kage's shock lasted a few moments. Then she turned angrily to the Hokage, who did not need to see her eyes before he began to explain. Yes. You are correct. Naruto-kun is not a demon. Instead, people make him a scapegoat for something that is no fault of his, solely because he is the most visible reminder they have to reproach. The weight carried by his words and power churning within the man before them silenced Inuyasha and Kage. Their protest died in their throats, whilst the Hokage took a deep breath from his pipe. His eyes met the couple's, filing both with a piercing stare, backed by sufficient power to make them hesitate. Please. Bear with me, Kage-san. Inuyasha-san. Naruto-kun's circumstances will take a lengthy explanation for you to understand everything about the suffering that boy has endured. However, what I am about to reveal is an S-class secret. An extremely high-priority threat that only I can speak of openly without severe punishment. The man rose to his feet, drawing a series of paper tags from his robes. I am going to establish a silent seal array on this room first. Then I will begin to reveal the truth about Naruto's situation. Inuyasha was visibly uneasy, but when Kage caught his attention, he changed from aggressive to apprehensive. The third Hokage nodded and had the seal ready within minutes. This situation is shaping to be far better than I had planned for or dared to hope. They have formed a fluid river to nearly the precise circumstance that I wish to shape through these interactions. Let's see what will come next. Once the array was set and active, the Hokage moved back to a chair at the table, while Inuyasha and Kage sat opposite to him. And he began his story. Should you share this with anybody, then both Naruto's lives and others here in my village will be left endangered. Should that come to pass, then I will hunt and destroy you both myself, even back to your home dimension, should that be required. At the promise of death, Hiruzen let out a pulse of his power, shaking the entire room. Inuyasha's hand gripped a Seiga, trying to push beyond the dense veil of power from the elder man, while Kage was fixed in her seat. After lingering for one moment longer, the Sandaime Hokage relaxed, assuming the guise of a paternal leader once more. 10 years ago, our village was attacked by a powerful entity called the Kyuubi no Kitsune no Yakai. This beast was one of the Biju. A group of different beings whom are pure chakra entities. Their entire existence is self-sustaining chakra, granting incredible degrees of power. To the extent that they are immortal, large enough to tower over all the trees in the surrounding forests, and terrifying ferocious. There are 9 Biju throughout the world, and the Kyuubi no Kitsune is known to be the most powerful and rage-filled of them all. Thousands of people were killed when it attacked my village, both civilians and shinobi fighting to contain it. The Hokage's tone carried his emotions. Respectful awe toward such power, layered with grief, regret, and hatred. At them, Inuyasha was growling, while Kage's mind grew hard as iron. His words I only recall hearing Naraku spoken with such venom and anger. But this man he's almost like Sango towards Kahaku's death. This Hokage's rage is towards the losses and tragedy of this event, more than a single living thing. In the end, Hiruzen continued, my successor, the Yondaime Hokage, met the beast in single combat. He alone was able to remove the Kyuubi from our village and successfully defeated. At the cost of his life. However, unlike the demons in your dimension, the Biju cannot be killed. As I described, they are beings made of pure chakra. Chakra naturally reaccumulates within any living thing until it reaches a certain capacity. Since they are pure chakra with a physical form, the Biju can only be weakened. And locked away into a single living being with sufficient power to restrain them. The Hokage voice gradually took on a grave tone as he spoke. While Kage's eye grew wide, glancing at the door Naruto had left through and grasping an assumption. He sealed it inside Naruto. The elder's eyes rose in surprise, before compassing himself and nodding. The weary Hokage sighed. Yes. The magnitude and nature of a Biju's chakra means that they cannot be sealed into an object indefinitely. The only stable source to restrain them is within a living being, with a large enough chakra network to sustain and suppress the Biju's power through a powerful fuinjutsu. At that time, Naruto and the Yondaime himself were the only beings present who could fulfill these requirements. Then why the hell was the left with a burden like that? Inuyasha roared, shooting to his feet, nearly yanking Hiruzen into his claws. The Hanyu's entire body was shaking, desperate for something, anything at all to snap in half from these revelations. If he could have taken that burden alone, why didn't this yondaime, he spat the name with disgusted sarcasm, lock that fox away into himself. Kagam was barely any better. I need more beads of subjugation. Enough for every single disgusting person in this village to sit. She mentally exclaimed. He did, Inuyasha-san, Raizen replied, sternly. The process for executing such a fuinijutsu to hold back a biju is usually extremely time-consuming, and many of those available could not be completed single-handed on a chaotic battlefield. The Kyuubi no Kitsune was only restrained. It was not defeated, nor incapacitated enough for any other way. So the yondaime Hokage did execute a seal to lock half of the Kyuubi's chakra into himself. And the only jutsu capable of doing that killed him. Nobody made a sound. Hiruzen watched the couple carefully as Kagam's mouth hung agape, her entire form trembling with awe. Inuyasha's arms dropped to his side, most of the anger evaporating from him. It was called the Shinki Fuinogi. A technique that can summon the Shinigami and seals away whomever the summoner targets into its stomach for eternity. However, it also takes the soul of the individual whom casts the death seal as well, causing them to die. My successor performed it, sealing half of the Kyuubi's chakra into himself and his remaining power to seal the rest of the weakened Kyuubi into Naruto. Naruto was made a Jinchuriki. A human sacrifice to become the host of a biju. He saved the village that day and every day since, despite being only a newborn whose umbilical cord had just been cut. Kagam's hands flew to her mouth, tears welling in her eyes at the devastating events. Inuyasha's head hung very low, his spirit was flying through a storm of emotions. Anger directed towards hundreds of people. The villagers and the Kyuubi itself. Joined with a new respect towards the Sandaime Hokage and particularly Kakashi. Even when we first met, there was nothing but concern in Kakashi's one eye around Naruto. Wasn't that much, but there's no mistake it was better than others, the Hanyu acknowledged as Hiruzen continued his recount. You see, the people of my village see Naruto as the Kyuubi in human form, no matter how hard I have attempted to explain that he is only the container. Not the demon itself. Even some of my own shinobi choose to see him as a monster rather than a helpless child, forced to carry a burden he never wanted or volunteered for. The yondaime wanted Naruto to be seen as a hero. For protecting all of us from the Kyuubi within him every day. But too many decide to ignore his wishes or simply turn a blind eye to them both. Even the Sandaime could not keep disappointment and anger from his voice. How many times have I repeated myself to dozens of my people? Or dealt with Himura, Kaharu and Danzo's demands for Naruto to be used as a human weapon? Taking several deep breaths from his pipe, Hiruzen continued while Inuyasha and Kagam digested what they'd learned. Years ago, I made a law that nobody whom does not already know about the Kyuubi and Naruto can ever speak about it aloud. However, the people of my village indirectly pass on their prejudices to their children, leading them to reject Naruto or simply ignore him altogether. It reached a notably dangerous point 2 weeks ago. When there was skirmish in the Black Hills just outside of the village. A group of his classmates at the Shinobi Academy dared Naruto to go there to steal a kunai with the false promise of accepting him if he succeeded. He ran into a squad of Takinin and barely escaped. However, one of the few who can move past their prejudices saved him. Kagam could feel the ray of light that news brought to her eyes, which were flooding with silent tears for what Naruto had endured. Even the blazing glare in Inuyasha's eyes dimmed. His instructor, you mean Iruka. Both of Iruka-san's parents were killed by the Kyuubi. He grew up an orphan and often pulled pranks or acted as a clown to cover up his feeling of loneliness. However, once he heard from another student who exposed the scheme, he left the room to find Naruto out of concern for his well-being. He was able to counter and evade the enemy squad while keeping Naruto safe until Kakashi arrived and defeated them very casually. Since then, Iruka has shown great concern for Naruto. Still he remains part of a drastic minority, the Hokage swallowed, measuring everything very, very carefully to keep the sense of pleading out of his voice. The multitude of people here in the village continue act as if Naruto had never existed or as a blight that ought to be removed. In response, he performs various pranks and outbursts to gain any form of attention he can find. It has become a constant form of trouble, all to get others to notice him, in some way at the least. He craves acknowledgement above all else, no matter what form it takes. The Hokage took a long drag from his pipe and sat back. He looked over the couple in front of him before curling back in fear. Why is he alone? If you know this is happening, why didn't you adopt him? Or assign someone to live with the kid and look after him? Inuyasha roared. The Hokage recoiled from the rage that was flung at him, empowered by a pure emotional outburst on Naruto's behalf. It's just cruel. Kagam tearfully accused him. Shooting to her feet alongside her husband. How can these people be so ignorant and indignant? Why would they treat such an adorable pure child like that just because he's available to blame? And why haven't you done more for him? H H H H H H H H H H H H H H. The Hokage's sigh seemed to age him by an extra decade. Politics. He almost spat out. The start, should Naruto, as a Jinchuriki, ever become part of a clan, then those in question may claim that they control the Kyuubi within him. That could lead to them strong-arming their own agendas and desires in all of the village's affairs. While I could trust many of the clan heads, the bulk of their clan members and the respective clan elders have greater faults. Even I, as the patriarch of the Sarutobi clan, could theoretically adopt Naruto as my grandson. As much as I would love to do exactly that, I cannot trust my own clan members to accept him without protest or to use him to advance their own ambitions. As a result, from trying to protect Naruto from the worst and maintaining balance in the village, there is very little I am able to do at all. As the Hokage completed his testimony of Naruto's life, Kagome felt sympathy for the elderly leader. He truly did care about Naruto, but there really was little that he could do. They remained silent for several moments until the Hokage spoke up. There is one option that is still available, though. Inuyasha and Kagome were apprehensive of the Hokage's statement. If Naruto was adopted by a civilian family or by one of my ninja who are outside of the clans, then I could approve of the adoption and extend Anbu security to them, ensuring that nobody interfered with them. However, no one will come forward at all. If. Inuyasha stood up, moving directly for the balcony and out into the fresh open air. Inuyasha. Kagome called after her husband, following him outside. Outdoors, the Hanyu was gripping the railing, nearly tearing it from the concrete. Ugh. If I don't break something soon I'll Inuyasha, my love, a soothing voice washed over him, joined with a familiar hand over his right shoulder, its opposite arm reaching his left hip. Looking aside, he found Kagome pulling herself closer to him, her eyes closed tight. At her touch, his mood cooled slightly, placing his left arm across her shoulders, with the right tucked close to her form. For some minutes, the couple stood there, soothing one another of the rage towards Naruto's terrible discrimination. Until Kagome opened her eyes again, looking down towards the streets. Calling all of this unfair is an understatement. The cruelty and unfairness of Naruto-kun's life, it took all of Kagome's will to swallow back the tears swelling in her head. It's worse than that, barely higher than a whisper in the wind, Inuyasha's voice was lower than Kagome had ever heard her husband speak before. Kagome, centuries ago when my mother was still alive. She was always there to soften the blows whenever someone rejected or mistreated me. I still remember her words and her tears. Even with the hard times I faced after her death, there was one time where somebody was there for me, his voice was thousands of kilometers away, and Kagome heard every syllable clear as the dawn. Imagining Naruto's life, one not dissimilar to his own and facing it alone, ignited Inuyasha's spirit. I can barely imagine how Naruto is handling the same when he was so young and all alone. With nobody and nothing, well beyond all of that he wants to find recognitions from other people all the while. I don't believe he should stop fighting back to find acceptance from them, Kagome. Our life together once people in Keed's village accepted me is far better than what I had a lifetime ago. But if someone doesn't help him, that kid's spirit might break under the pressure and challenges in front of him. Kagome stood there, holding tight to Inuyasha as he began panting from the emotions in his heart. Her own carried similar sentiments layered with new and powerful kinds of emotions. She was unaware of them, but these new feelings blooming in Kagome's soul towards the fate-damned child she had met could be more volatile and unpredictable than all the Biju combined. I feel the same way. Just from Naruto-kun's expression as I was treating his injuries. A lump forming in her throat cut Kagome's words from her voice until it was swallowed back, moving into her limbs. Inuyasha felt her dropping and soon grasped his wife, passing his strength to her. Kagome. I can't stand it, Inuyasha. That was the first no the only time that child has been given any real care or concern from another being before. She spoke, trying desperately not to begin yelling curses out to all those below them from the balcony. Just the idea of him and his life all alone and surrounding by those who despise him who know the truth and chose to ignore it in favor of their hatred. I can't stand the idea of leaving him here, all alone. She explained. Even worse, with a power like that inside him, one that other people clearly covet like the Hokage described, we cannot take him with us to a safer place at all. Now Kagome was the one growling past her teeth, carrying a fury that even their closest friends knew very well to fear, deeply. Inuyasha nodded, looking out at the carved faces in the mountain, then towards the village below them, and back towards his wife. The idea of leaving Naruto in this village, alone, tore a giant hole in his heart. Nobody here is gonna give him any form of real care, that's for certain, he reasoned, with golden eyes of rage blazing, trying to find some solution to the matter at hand. Plus, from what Kakashi, Guy, Kurenai and Anko described, there are well over 10,000 of these ninjas right here. On top of that they know where we came from, so the chances are high that even if we tried to sneak away with Naruto, they would follow us. Maybe even take it as an excuse to kill the kid. If only we could Kagem's musing were stopped by a gasp. Looking across the village, a new idea came to her mind. Inuyasha, what if? Spying the look on his face, Kagem leaned close to one twitching ear and whispered her idea. At the concept, Inuyasha's face twisted in shock, then slowly dissipating to deep frown. Kagem, are you certain of this? Well, it is somewhat out of the blue, she admitted, looking out across the town. Still, it is not as if we'd permanently lose everyone in our home. Even then I don't want to be pessimistic, but we aren't even positive whether there is a way back home through the void. Well, for the moment. Having one option for our lives right here just in case does make some sense. Even more than that, she continued, one hand slipping down to her lower abdomen. Maybe here, the technology and knowledge they have could let us finally have. Staying silent for a moment, she pushed that matter aside and thought back towards the boy. Think of it, Inuyasha. We would be able to give Naruto the care, nurture, protection and more that he desperately needs. And even start our own family here in this world. Just one look in her husband's eyes told Kagem everything she needed to know. Kagem, Inuyasha reached with both hands, cupping her face and resting his forehead to hers. You gave up your entire worlds for me. So, we could be together. For you, I won't stop from doing the same. But you already gave up one world for me. Please, don't force yourself to do the same again. At his words, Kagem couldn't keep a smile from her lips towards the man she loved deeper than life itself. He wants to do this even more than I do. He wants to protect Naruto from the life that he experienced for over one whole century. And want to give this boy love as well, if he will accept us as his family. I won't be, Inuyasha. We aren't turning away from Kidd's village completely. But this is something we both want to do. I promise. Searching her eyes, Inuyasha couldn't find half a sliver of deceit. Kagem did the same, each partner realizing they were certain. Nodding together, they moved back inside. Inuyasha shut the door behind them, while Kagem sat across from the Hokage. Hokage-sama. Kagem faced the man, with a spirit that made the aged Sandaime freeze with shock. I know that we talked about only staying here temporarily until we were able to go back to the void well and go home. But now Inuyasha and I want something different. Will you allow us to settle here in your village and take in Naruto as our son? Silence fell over the room, even a fly won't dare make a sound until the Hokage's pipe dropped from his mouth, setting off a loud clack once it struck the floor. Despite the hope he carried, Hiruzen found himself struggling to digest the shock Kagem's words threw into his mind. So? What's your answer, old man? Neither Kagem nor the Hokage registered the question. At long last, Hiruzen took a long deep breath, feeling the growing weight of his taxing emotions. The man was near crippled beneath the strain of holding back his elation and wished to grant them that very second. Lifting his pipe from the floor, Hiruzen reached for fresh tobacco before catching himself and putting both away. I need the clearest head for this, and nothing is going to ease me in this moment, he resigned. Immediately, he fixed Kagem with eyes that could burn even through the Amaterasu, leaving her to shudder in his sights. Why? One single question passed through the room towards the Higurashis. Well, I can guess what your answer will be. I still need to be certain, beyond any and all doubts. With every word, the Hokage's demeanor pressed greater weight towards the choice the pair had claimed to make. Why do you want to adopt Naruto-kun? Also, if you do consent to raising him, you must know that he cannot leave this village before you argue. He rushed, grasping the opportunity to explain. There are individuals who would try to attack Naruto due to his status as a Jinchuriki. It would be filled with risks and difficulties, but it is nonetheless possible to extract a biju from their host. Once that is done, someone could theoretically reseal it into a new vessel under their control and use the biju's power as a weapon against Konohagakure. Also, if Naruto is outside of the village and his seal suddenly breaks, then the Kyuubi would likely destroy anyone and anything to cross its path. With nobody to stop it and seal it away again. As minuscule as the chances are, that is not something I will risk happening. These are my concerns as a Hokage. However, as a man and a grandfather, I am also imposing this for Naruto's sake. Kagem's narrow eyes widened. Catching the true love within the Hokage's spirit. Reaching across the gap between them, he covered Hiruzen's weathered hand with her own, soft, supple one. The touch was gentle, reassuring, but did not reach the steely glint in her eyes. The elderly leader found himself shocked at the two eyes with wisdom far beyond even his. With the vigor and vitality of youth to drive their purpose forwards beyond any and everything in the way of their owner. With a lens of sympathy and curiosity that spoke the highest volumes to her legitimate concern for someone. Someone he could easily guess towards whom. Please, tell us more, Kagem asked from him. Taking another breath, the Sandaime Hokage continued. If a Jinchuriki's Biju is ever successfully extracted, the trauma has always caused the Jinchuriki to die. While his life in Konoha is far from ideal, there is no one here who would or could dare to perform an extraction technique on Naruto-kun without being discovered and captured. A form of protection that would become severely less were he to leave the village. Also, if I allow you to adopt him, then I want to see Naruto grow up protected and loved. The Hokage's tone changed from serious, the heartfelt. Catch even Inuyasha's close attention, past his instinctive distrust. I have no desire to see Naruto suffering or abandoned. As bad as life has been up until now, to be accepted by someone and then abandoned after, or forcibly separated from them, would very likely break that child. How serious are you both regarding this offer? And giving up the lives you have settled into, only for his sake? Inuyasha's eyes mirrored his wife's, both meeting one another's, to debate a final chance to turn back. I admit, it's kind of crazy that Kagome and I were focused only on getting back home just this morning. And now we're going to have to call this place home if we want to help Naruto. But if I left him alone, I'd regret it for the remainder of my life, no matter how long that would be. I won't just leave someone no different from how I was. Not anymore. Inuyasha nodded towards Kagome, and her eyes quickly changed, matching his with a different layer of purpose behind them. Facing the Hokage again, she gave him their answer. Hokage-sama. I've only been around him for moments, and I want to help Naruto-san so badly. Even more than protect him from such prejudice and suffering, I want to show him the love and acceptance that someone can only find in a family. Hokage-sama, you already know what kind of life Inuyasha had back in our home dimension as a Hanyu, for my memories. But Naruto-san's life is far, far worse than he or anyone else we know. Over our time together, my husband and I have met with other Hanyus, her thoughts turning over several names in her mind. Jinenji-chan, Shiori-chan, and many of them were ostracized and mistreated, but they also had family beside them to protect or comfort them, however they could. But Naruto-kun is far different. He child is completely alone, and if nobody helps him, he will likely grow to accept or expect hate and distrust everyone he encounters. Or worse, a hard glare formed on Kagome at a certain recollection. One of those we met was named Izumo. A Hanyu who desired to be fully human. Yet his efforts became misguided by desperation and deception. He tried to recreate a second Shiken jewel by sacrificing our souls to complete it. In the end he was killed while desperately trying to avoid his own humanity and lost all that he wanted to gain. Shifting her focus back to the present, the image of Naruto's face filled Kagome's mind, standing between herself and Inuyasha, her drive and soul building stronger at the image, she continued. While I was taking care of his injuries, Naruto-san told me that he had been training in a forest nearby, but fell from a tree branch and ended up with all of those cuts and scrapes. He was in the town looking for enough bandages to help himself, and the place that he usually buys them from was closed today. I do not know anything about Izumo's past, but all the other Hanyus still had family or companions beside them to guide and encourage them along a better path through life. Naruto is completely different, with nobody beside or with him to provide the guidance, love, and lessons only a parent can impart to somebody. I want to save that boy from the loneliness that is so deep in his heart. I want to give him a family that will take care of him. That he can trust and love. I cannot think of a better answer to your concerns than that. Kagome declared, her voice filled with enough conviction and dedication to intimidate the Hokage. That's right. Inuyasha affirmed, stepping up beside her, with even greater purpose than Kagome had display. Hokage. For literally 1 century, my life was lonely, scorned, and dangerous all the time. And I was weak enough to let it shape me into becoming what everyone said I was. But Naruto, he's different in very big way, but I doubt it can last forever all on his own. But even when I was a kid, I still had my mother around. Her comfort made all the difference because it prevented me from losing my humanity, he recalled, forcing back tears at the memory Izaioi and the concept crawling into his mind. Now I have a chance, Kagome and I both do, to live up to her memory. We want to protect Naruto, but even more than that, we want to give him what he needs more than even he might realize. I want to look after that kid so I can hopefully be as good a parent to him as she was for me. Kagome couldn't stop her smile from growing as she heard Inuyasha's pledge. So, what do you think? Is there anything more you need from us, or can we do it? Inuyasha demanded from the Sandaime. The Hokage was quiet for a while. During that time, his piercing eyes continued searching them, enough to make the pair silent and impatient. Finally, just before Inuyasha would speak again, he rose to his feet. Smiling. You have already spoken precisely what I needed to hear. The Hokage answered, with a very wide grin. Reflecting the stifling relief flooding through his heart. So, you're letting us adopt Naruto as our own kid? Inuyasha cried out. I cannot see any reason not to. The Sandaime Hokage rose and began to move towards the door. If you will, please follow me. I have his adoption papers in my office. 0, 0. Hiruzen, Kagome and Inuyasha arrived at the Hokage's office presently. The Sandaime immediately moved to the cabinet beside his desk and removed a portfolio from it. Before moving to his desk and facing two soon-to-be parents across it. First, I need you to complete some emigration papers to become full citizens of Konoha. Also, I will arrange for a monetary loan to be made to you both to buy property, food, furniture, and other necessities for living here in the village. You can pay it back over time, or I could possibly make some arrangements for it to become a village expense if either of you become members of our military forces with the responsibility of raising and protecting Naruto-kun. Then you can both sign Naruto's adoption forms. Kagome nodded. Reading over them, a new apprehension dropped on her shoulders. I do wish we didn't have to become in economic debt to fulfill this. But I'm going to be a mother. I'm so close to becoming a mother. A deep void in her heart, built from the past, began to fade. Replaced with joy, pride and a powerful drive to nurture and protect the boy from anyone and anything. The feelings she had started to develop earlier growing stronger, deeper. We'll manage, Kagome silently resolved. I'll probably start looking for an extra job here very soon, but our skills might help some missions these ninjas perform that Kurenai-chan was describing. Inuyasha also had similar feelings. While he had been content to simply watch over Naruto at the beginning, his memories turned to Kied's village and the discussions with Kagome over the pair of them about having their own children. This really is happening, here in this very moment. A familiar sense of doubt crept into his mind before one look at Kagome swept them aside. I'm not backing away and leaving the kid alone. I will protect him and nobody will be through me to reach a finger's width from Naruto. He fiercely promised. After about 20 minutes, the emigration forms were signed, along with a trial agreement the Hokage had insisted for to assess Inuyasha's skills. If your endeavors towards Kakashi's team is any indication, Inuyasha-san, the Hokage explained. Then I will certainly request for you to join certain missions for the sake of the village and to provide your family with an income. Although, I would like to arrange a test to accurately gauge all of your capabilities against some of my own ninja to determine how skilled you truly are. Inuyasha's heritage shone brightly at this news, the smile of a wolf meeting the prospect of challenging others, mixed with his own innate spirit for competition. Next, the Hokage placed a probationary period of 3 years on their paperwork, during which their citizenship could be terminated at any time on his degree or lifted in the cases of displaying extreme dedication to Konoha. Kagome read through all of the forms carefully before signing them with Inuyasha. The Hokage complied each of them together before walking over to a filing cabinet and pulling out one specific portfolio format. Now, this is Naruto's adoption certificate. I'll need you both to sign it and smear a few drops of your blood in the designated space. I assure you, the blood is only confirmation of who you are in case developments emerge in the future, the Hokage explained. Kagome read through these documents as well. Combing through each and every detail until one line stopped her, sharply. And hereby be allowed access to any and all clan inheritance up inheritance. Kagome spoke in surprise. Hokage-sama. This form lists that Naruto-kun is connected to a clan. Why? They are gone, Kagome-san, Hiruzen expediently stopped her. The Uzumaki clan were, at one time, an ally to Konoha going back to our founding. My predecessor, the Shodaime Hokage married a woman, Uzumaki Mido, to solidify the alliance between them in the early years of the great shinobi villages. The Hokage took a solemn breath from his pipe, eyeing each of the pair with precise deliberation. Better for them to focus on his maternal heritage. And remain distracted from his father. Decades ago the Uzumaki clan, along with their home, Uzashigakure, were shattered during war. At that time, very few Uzumaki were in my village, though one of the few were Naruto-kun's mother. Recalling the fiery woman and her tragic excitement to become a mother, truthful tears pricked at the corners of the aged Hokage's eyes. She died in childbirth during the Kyuubi's attack and her husband was among the first to be killed. The office remained quiet for several moments while the Hokage hid his face to hide a painful, reminiscent smile. The Hokage's world and his desk were rocked by a sudden crash, nearly splitting the elderly man's eardrums. Shooting to his feet, reflexes ready for a threat, Sarutobi Hiruzen became immediately frozen by Kagome's blazing specter. Even Inuyasha was taking steps away, worried for what his wife may do next. The woman's hair was cast in a wide mane, writhing about as living will all its own. Even beneath the Miko's robes, her arms were clearly taut, shaking to contain the fury in all her being. The next moment, she threw her head high, eyes closing tight. And let out one long breath compassing herself. Kagome continued to sign the documents, neatly writing her name and pricking her thumb with a kunai the Hokage had provided. Then passed it towards Inuyasha, only then noticing how frozen he had become. After some coaxing from Kagome towards her husband, he signed the forms as well. For the first time thankful that Kagam had hammered some writing lessons into his head over the years they had been together for. Once it was done, an unfrozen and reassured Hokage collected all the documents. A broad tear-laced smile grew on his face. "Hokage-sama. Are you?" Kagam asked. "I am more than alright, Kagam-san. I have waited a very long time to see someone I could trust sign these documents. Now, the pair of you are the legal guardians of Uzumaki Naruto. 0. Outside the Hokage building, unaware of such a monumental change in his life, Naruto was slurping down a bowl of his favorite meal. Kakashi glanced over at him with a hidden smile after the pair spent a somewhat lonesome time at a local park. After Naruto was able to join a handle of children, the copy-nin noticed some parents arriving to herd their own charges away. Spying this, the Jonin rapidly interposed, suggesting a quick snack for the boy and giving him a chance to wave goodbye to the other children. The two had been at Ichiraku's for a while. Long enough for Naruto to consume 5 bowls of miso, pork, shrimp, and beef ramen. You know, Naruto, you really should slow down when you eat something you enjoy. Make the flavor last, and you can enjoy it longer, Kakashi encouraged, picking at a bowl of miso soup with eggplant mixed in. Why shout it dooth sast we nai? Naruto. Cried out one of the staff, a young, eager girl with an open smile. Even as she flicked his forehead. Don't talk with your mouth full like that. Swallow, then answer Haddock-san. Naruto took a few moments to empty the noodles and meat from his mouth. Sorry Amni-chan. Kakashi-san. Why should I slow down when there's so much to eat? And if I do then I'll waste time that I could spend training or setting up a prank. For the following moment, Kakashi contemplated this perspective. Well, if you say it like that. You certainly have some of the right kind of priorities for a shinobi. What do you need all the time for? My next prank on Suzume-sensei, Tomer. Oh. So that is who your next target is? Kakashi said with an eye smiled. Naruto gawked then hummed it in a pout. Muttering about being tricked. Kakashi chuckled until he felt a presence by his shoulder. Kakashi-senpai. An Anbu whispered to him. Denzo. Kakashi recognized. Sandaime-sama wishes for you and Naruto to meet him at the Hokage's office. Also, you and I have been assigned to look in on him and his new family intermittently for the next year, his subordinate whispered. Kakashi's eye widened at the news. For a full 4 seconds before compassing himself. Well, Naruto-san. It looks like we need to leave. What? Why? Naruto cried as he was about to order a 6th bowl. Hokage-sama wants us to meet him at the tower. Inuyasha-san and Kagam-san will be there as well. Oh, Shinobi-san. Teki spoke. When you see them, please tell them to come by sometime. I'll offer them a free bowl of ramen for helping out our best customer. I'm sure they'll be pleased to meet you as well. Come on Naruto, let's not keep them waiting, Kakashi agreed. Naruto hopped off of his stool. But before running off, he felt a firm hand of his shoulder. Looking up, Kakashi was gripping him pretty tightly. Hey WHSHHH, Kakashi stopped his question. Why don't we take the fast way, explained. Holding tight, the ninja sunshined both of them straight into the Hokage's office. Whoa. Kakashi turned around to see Inuyasha stumbling back from his sudden appearance. Mama, hi there. Sorry, Inuyasha-san. I thought Naruto would like to hear the good news quickly. Suddenly, the room was surrounded by a dozen Anbu, all fully armed and ready to fight. What the Inuyasha's hand went to Seiga as a blanket of killer intent cast over the room directly from the Hokage. Naruto. Go to Kagam-san now. He commanded in a very stern voice, standing tall with a kunai drawn. Naruto was too surprised to move, but Kagam grabbed him, pulling the boy close protectively and moving behind Inuyasha. The Hanyu followed his instinct, Seiga in hand, his demonic blood, empowered with a drive to protect, grew to its trademark size, leveled in a horizontal guard, ready to strike or block. Kakashi glanced around, completely bewildered. Hokage-sama. Silence. The Hokage ordered, his eyes casting a danger glare at Kakashi. Who are you? Answer me immediately what you have done with Heike Kakashi. And how did you get so close to Naruto-kun? Following his example, each and every Anbu went on high alert, tightening their focus on the new arrival. Sandaime-sama. I am Kakashi, he tried to explain. Impossible. The Hokage answered, sternly. Do you take me for fool? You have arrived far too promptly to be him. Kakashi has not been that punctual for 12 years. There was quite the commotion as a few Hyuga and one Yamanaka in the Anbu, plus a medical nin joined them. Each did their own assessments, including a blood test, on the single Kakashi. Present. It took a span of 30 minutes, all while Kagam tried to keep one excitable boy at his side. Whilst Naruto had stars in his eyes towards the giant sword to Seiga, begging to hold it himself. Eventually, everyone there confirmed that Kakashi was the real one, to their gargantuan and mutual bewilderment. I'm not that bad, a certain lazy Jonin asked, scratching his head, am I? All of the Konoha shinobi answered, with silence and one sheared expression. Deadpan. Even in the Anbu, the only things more legendary than Kakashi's skills were his tardiness. I'll try to work on that so this doesn't happen again, Kakashi replied. The Hokage merely shuffled, compassing him, then dismissing everyone. Inuyasha calmed his sword, placing it back in the sheath at his hip. And reminding everyone of why they were gathered there. Naruto-kun, the Hokage called toward him. I have some very, very good news for you about Kagome-san and Inuyasha-san. You do? What is it, Kagome-san? Naruto asking, turning his head upwards toward her. Kagome's response was to place a gentle pair of hands on his shoulders. Guiding him towards the center of the office. Inuyasha followed, standing at Kagome's shoulder as she knelt before the boy. Looking deeply into Naruto's eyes, giving a look he'd never seen, pulling at his heartstrings, she was quiet for a moment. Then began to speak, in a soft voice. Naruto-kun, how did you feel when I was taking care of you back in our apartment? And when we met you for the first time and protected you out on the streets? And you were hurt, lonely, and feeling sad. The boy hid his face, pushing down the feelings churning inside, before answering the question. I felt good, Kagome-san, confusion marring his voice. You made the pain go away, you made me feel better when I was alone, and you're the first person who stopped someone from looking at me like I was germ or something they wanted to disappear. Naruto answered. His gaze and his mood dropping in recollection. Until one hand slipped under his chin, soft and warm to the touch, tilting him up to face her. Kagome smiled. Well, I am very happy to hear that. Because my husband, Inuyasha, and I talked with the Hokage after you left. Naruto-kun, she took a deep breath, trying to compose her excitement and anxiety. Inuyasha and I would like for you to become part of our family. We want to adopt you. To take care of you. To become your new parents. She gently caressed Naruto's cheek. For you to become our son. Naruto was beyond stunned. Kagome's heartfelt and encouraging words shocked him to the core. His mind was a blank for several moments, standing straight, not a twitch to be made, and unable to respond. Why you want to adopt me? He spoke, the awe clear in his voice. Words he had craved for longer than he could remember, tying his face with immovable awe. That's right, kid. Naruto looked up at Inuyasha, he held a fierce grin on his face. We want to live in this village with you, as our own kid. What do you say? Naruto's gaze turned back to Kagome. Then to Inuyasha, then to the Hokage. Guessing at what he wanted, the man gave an encouraging nod. They are telling the truth, Naruto-kun. Tell us, do you want to live with them? For them to be your family? A broad, exceptional, emotional smile spread across Naruto's face. Wide enough to crack a mountain apart. Whirling about to face Kagome, he gave his answer. Yes. His cried, launching himself into her arms. His own laced around her neck and he squeezed his new mother close. The woman beamed, rising to her feet with Naruto held in a heart-filled embrace. Yes. I do want to have you around more. To be your son. The hand began to ruffle Naruto's hair. That's right, Naruto, Inuyasha spoke with pride. Welcome to a family. Our family. The Sandaime and even Kakashi blinked away the moisture in their eyes as Naruto reached one arm around Inuyasha's neck. And there he was, clutching his new parents with both of his arms as they hugged him back. The new family was born. Even as a figure began to slither away. Their master had request for them to spy on the new arrivals in case they proved to be a threat, skilled enough to even adapt to the Sandaime Hokage's presence. Now, with extreme care, the spy left for their master. Anzu-sama must be informed of this development. And what if Naruto was a hybrid beast in Inuyasha? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.